Hello guys, welcome to Saiyan What Ifs. So in this video, we will see, what if Goku fused with Shenron? If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. ___. Chapter 1. Emergence of the Dragon Sovereign. The skies above planet Earth fractured like broken glass. Reality itself screamed as Lord Beerus, his eyes glowing with unnatural purple flame, his body enveloped in corrupted Hawkeye energy, tore through the dimensional barriers separating Universe 7 from its neighbors. Something ancient and malevolent had infected the god of destruction during his exploration of a forbidden pocket dimension, transforming the capricious but ultimately balanced deity into an agent of absolute annihilation. "This isn't Beerus anymore," Whis shouted, his typically composed demeanor shattered as his staff deflected a blast that would have eradicated West City. The angel's face bore an expression no mortal had ever witnessed, genuine fear. Whatever has possessed him seeks to undo the partitions between universes. If they collapse completely, Son Goku didn't need to hear the rest. Blood streamed down his face, his orange GI hung in tatters, and his right arm dangled uselessly at his side. Even Ultra Instinct had proven insufficient against a corrupted destroyer. Behind him, Vegeta lay unconscious in a crater, having sacrificed himself to protect his family from Beerus's rampage. Piccolo maintained a wavering barrier around the surviving civilians, his life force draining with each passing second. "We need Zeno," Goku muttered, reaching for the button the Omni King had given him years ago. "There's no time," Whis countered, a series of intricate symbols materializing around his staff as he attempted another sealing technique. And in his current state, No might simply erase everything rather than attempt to solve the corruption. The Grand Priest foresaw this possibility, it's why he evacuated Zeno to the Null Realm. The corrupted Beerus laughed, a sound like galaxies dying. "Liberation comes. The boundaries fall. All returns to chaos." His voice resonated with multiple tones, as though countless entities spoke through him simultaneously. A shock wave of anti-creation energy pulsed outward, reducing nearby mountains to their component atoms. The sky continued to fracture, revealing glimpses of other universes bleeding through, Universe 6, Universe 11, others Goku couldn't identify. Reality was coming apart at the seams. Amid the chaos, a shimmering portal opened, and Supreme Kai appeared, clutching a golden orb the size of a basketball. "Goku, this is our last hope, the final Super Dragon Ball. The others are already in position across the dimensions." The Saiyan warrior's eyes widened. "But we need to gather all 7. "Already done," Shin gasped, clearly exhausted. "The other Kais, we coordinated across time and space. This is the 7th. One wish, that's all we have." Goku's mind raced. Wishes had limitations. They couldn't destroy beings more powerful than the dragon itself, and Beerus, even before corruption, outclassed Shenron. But Super Shenron was different. Yet still, could even the divine dragon overpower what if our force had hijacked the god of destruction? In that moment of desperate contemplation, Goku sensed something beyond the physical, a resonance between his own life energy and the dormant power within the Super Dragon Ball. Throughout his life, he had encountered and bonded with Earth's dragon countless times. Shenron's energy was familiar, almost friendly. "I have an idea," Goku said quietly, a calm certainty replacing his desperation. "But I'll need to speak the divine language to summon Super Shenron." Supreme Kai pressed his palm to Goku's forehead. "I'm transferring the knowledge directly." "But Goku, what are you planning?" The Saiyan warrior didn't answer. Instead, he took the golden orb and focused his remaining energy, establishing a psychic connection with the 6 other super drive Agon balls scattered across the multiverse. "Come forth, dragon of the gods, and grant my wish." The divine language flowed from Goku's lips as though he had spoken it all his life, the syllables resonating with the fundamental frequencies of creation itself. The multiverse trembled. Space-time contorted as golden light erupted from each of the 7 Super Dragon Balls simultaneously across different universes. The light converged, piercing through the dimensional barriers, forming a dragon of cosmic proportions that dwarfed even Beerus's immense power. Super Shenron manifested, its golden form spanning galaxies. its eyes ancient beyond comprehension. I am the eternal dragon of the divine. Speak your wish, and I shall grant it. The voice reverberated not through air but through the fabric of existence itself. The corrupted Beerus howled in rage and fear, sensing a power that even his possessed state recognized as superior. He launched himself toward Goku, destruction energy concentra. Ted into a sphere that could unmake a universe. Time seemed to slow as Goku looked around at the world he had protected for so long. Piccolo's determined grimace as he maintained the barrier with his last reserves. Gohan and Krillin evacuating survivors. Bulma standing defiantly before her family's compound, some desperate last-ditch technological solution clutched in her hands. They had always relied on his strength, his ability to surpass his limits. But some enemies couldn't be defeated by strength alone. In that crystallized moment, Goku understood what needed to be done. Not victory through combat, but through transformation. Not destruction, but creation of something entirely new. I wish. Goku spoke, his voice steady as Beerus's attack hurtled toward him, for Shenron and myself. To permanently fuse into a new being with the power to restore balance to the multiverse. Super Shenron's cosmic eyes widened, if such a thing were possible for a being of its scale. This wish is unprecedented. It will fundamentally alter the nature of both dragon and mortal. Are you certain? Yes. No hesitation. No second thoughts. This was the way. Then it shall be done. The world exploded into golden light. The fusion occurs not in flash, but in stages, deliberate, cosmic, fundamental. Time loses meaning as dragon magic and mortal ki intermingle, as eternal wisdom merges with warrior spirit. Goku feels himself simultaneously expanding beyond physical form and condensing into perfect crystalline focus. His consciousness touches Shenron's ancient mind, not just Earth's dragon, but the original celestial dragon from whom all others derive their essence. He experiences eons of granting wishes, observing mortal folly and triumph, maintaining the delicate balance between desire and consequence. Shenron, in turn, experiences mortality for the first time, the exhilaration of physical combat, the simple joy of a meal among friends, the fierce protective love for family and comrades. E-Dragon's eternal detachment dissolves in the face of Goku's passionate engagement with life. They are no longer two entities but something utterly new. Neither dragon nor Saiyan, yet both simultaneously. The fusion reshapes reality around it, drawing on Super Shenron's power to fulfill its purpose, restoring balance. The corrupting entity inhabiting Beerus is extracted, contained, neutralized. Fractures in space-time seal themselves. The bleeding between universes stabilizes into manageable, controlled passages rather than catastrophic breaches. The new being opens its eyes, golden irises, with vertical pupils set against whites that occasionally shimmer with emerald energy. Knowledge and power flow through a body that appears mostly human but bears subtle draconic features, hint of scales along forearms, elongated canines, slightly pointed ears. The fusion is complete. Son Shenku has been born. Remarkable, Bulma whispered, adjusting the settings on her quantum resonance scanner. Your cellular structure constantly shifts between organic matter and something I can only describe as solidified possibility. Her blue hair was pulled back in a functional ponytail, lab coat replacing her usual fashion-forward attire. 3 days had passed since the fusion, and she had barely slept, utterly captivated by the scientific implications of Shenku's existence. Shenku sat motionless on the examination table, allowing Bulma's instruments to analyze his transformed body. The laboratory deep within Capsule Corporation had been converted into a specialized research facility capable of measuring energies that defied conventional physics. His voice, when he spoke, carried dual tones, Goku's familiar warmth overlaid with Shenron's resonant depth. How does it feel? He asked, observing her with unnerving stillness. Where Goku had been perpetually in motion, Shenku possessed the patience of a being who had existed since time immemorial. Bulma glanced up from her instruments, momentarily confused. How does what feel? Being the first mortal scientist to study dragon physiology, Shenku clarified, a subtle smile revealing slightly pointed canines. Shenron finds your curiosity refreshing. Dragons are accustomed to being sought for what they can provide, not for what they are. Well, Bulma replied, setting down her scanner and meeting his gaze directly, you know me. Ever met a mystery I didn't want to solve? She hesitated, then asked the question that had been troubling her since witnessing the fusion. Is Goku still in there? Really him, I mean. The question touched something deep within Shenku. He raised his hand, examining the interplay of light across skin that occasionally rippled with subtle emerald patterns. I am both, yet neither. Goku's memories, instincts, connections, they're integral to who I am now, but transformed through merger with something ancient. His expression softened. He would want you to know that he remembers the Dragon Radar, the journey for the Dragon Balls. The wish that revived him after Namek. Those bonds remain. Bulma nodded, blinking rapidly to dispel unexpected moisture in her eyes. She covered the moment of vulnerability by turning back to her equipment. Your power levels are impossible to quantify with standard metrics. It's like measuring an ocean with a teaspoon. We should test practical applications, Shenku suggested, sliding off the examination table with fluid grace. Theories only reveal so much. The scientist's eyes lit with excitement. I've prepared a specialized training chamber based on the gravity room, but with added dimensional stability fields. It should withstand, well, hopefully whatever you can throw at it. As they walked through the compound, Shenku noticed the mixture of awe and apprehension from Capsule Corp employees. Word had spread about what had occurred, though few understood the full implications. He sensed Bulma watching his reactions closely, her scientific detachment occasionally slipping to reveal genuine concern for his adjustment. They fear what they don't understand, Shenku observed quietly. People always do, Bulma replied with unexpected gentleness. Give them time. They got used to a talking pig and a three-eyed martial artist. They'll adapt to you too. The testing chamber resembled a massive geodesic dome constructed of material that seemed to shift between solid and energy. Inside, the space extended far beyond what the external dimensions should allow. Bulma had incorporated pocket dimension technology, creating an environment where Shenku could exert significant power without risking structural damage to the surrounding area. Impressive, Shenku acknowledged, feeling the multiple layers of containment fields. You built this in 3 days. Bulma gave a dismissive wave that didn't quite hide her pride. I've had theoretical designs for years. Just needed the right motivation to implement them. She gestured toward a control panel. I'll monitor from here. Start with basic physical capabilities, then energy manipulation, then, whatever else you think you can do. Shenku moved to the center of the chamber and closed his eyes. Feeling the dual nature of his power, Saiyan Ki hummed through his muscles and nerves, familiar, vital, the product of training and biological potential. Intertwined with it was dragon magic, vast, ancient, connected to the fundamental forces that shaped reality itself. The two energies weren't fully integrated yet, sometimes flowing together in harmony, other times creating internal turbulence. He began with simple physical movements, punches, kicks, kata sequences that Goku had performed countless times. His body responded with perfect precision, each motion flowing into the next with liquid grace. Gradually, he increased his speed until he became a blur, testing the limits of his enhanced reflexes and coordination. Your muscle density is off the charts, Bulma's voice came through the communication system. And you're generating some kind of field effect that's altering local gravitational constants. Shenku nodded, transitioning to energy manipulation. He extended his palm up. ND focused on generating a standard ki blast, a technique he had performed thousands of times as Goku. The energy gathered as expected, but as it concentrated, emerald symbols appeared within the golden sphere. Draconic script rotating around the periphery. Fascinating, Bulma exclaimed. The energy signature contains embedded information patterns, almost like programmable matter. When Shenku really ASED the blast toward a reinforced target, instead of the expected explosion, the energy sphere expanded into a complex geometric pattern that enveloped the target. The pattern contracted, and the target disappeared completely. Where did it go? Bulma demanded, frantically checking her instruments. Shenku stared at his hand in surprise. I sent it elsewhere. A pocket dimension connected to Dragon Realm storage. He concentrated, and the target reappeared, completely intact. You can create dimensional pockets at will. Bulma's voice had risen an octave in scientific excitement. Apparently, Shenku frowned slightly. though it wasn't entirely intentional. The dragon aspects of my power respond to conceptual thinking more than focused intention. For the next hour, he explored this discovery, learning that his abilities extended far beyond conventional energy projection. He could manipulate spatial relationships, temporarily alter the properties of matter, and even create limited localized time dilation effects. Each new capability revealed the unprecedented nature of his fused existence. Try a transformation, Bulma suggested after recording another series of measurements. Can you still access Super Saiyan forms? Shenku centered himself, reaching for the familiar wellspring of Saiyan power that had fueled Goku's transformations. The energy responded, but differently than before. Instead of an explosive surge, the power rose like an incoming tide, controlled, deliberate, inevitable. His black hair shifted, not to the golden hue of Super Saiyan, but to a deep emerald green that undulated like flame. Scales emerged more prominently along his forearms and cheekbones, glowing with inner light. The aura surrounding him contained both the golden energy of a Super Saiyan and the ethereal green of dragon magic. The two colors intertwining in double helix patterns. This isn't Super Saiyan, he explained, examining his transformed state with curiosity. It's something new. Dragon aspect, perhaps. Bulma's voice was hushed with awe. The energy readings, they're completely off scale. But perfectly stable. None of the chaotic fluctuations we saw with Goku's higher transformations. Shenku extended his awareness outward, sensing the fabric of reality around him with newfound perception. I can feel everything. Every life force on Earth. The boundaries between dimensions. The flow of time itself. He focused his attention on a single point in space before him, and reality parted like a curtain, revealing a swirling portal. I can create pathways between worlds. That's enough for today, Bulma said firmly, shutting down the portal with a targeted electromagnetic pulse from the chamber's systems. We need to understand one ability before moving to the next. Shenku allowed his transformation to subside, returning to his base form. As the emerald light faded, he sensed a momentary disconnection, as though the two beings that had formed him briefly separated in consciousness before merging again. The sensation was disorienting, almost painful. Bulma noticed his discomfort immediately. What's wrong? Integration instability, he replied after a moment of internal assessment. The fusion is still settling. Certain states may temporarily disrupt the balance between Dragon and Saiyan aspects. Concern flashed across Bulma's face, not the detached interest of a scientist, but genuine worry. You should rest. Even with your power, this transformation is taxing on both physical and metaphysical levels. She hesitated, then added quietly, and the others want to see you. They've been waiting. Shenku nodded, acknowledging both the wisdom of her advice and the obligation to those who had been Goku's friends and family. As they exited the testing chamber, Bulma surprised him by placing her hand lightly on his arm. For what it's worth, she said with uncharacteristic gentleness, what you did, sacrificing yourself to save everything, it was the most Goku thing you could have done. Something shifted in Shenku's expression, a flicker of the open-hearted warmth that had defined Son Goku. Thank you, Bulma. That means more than you know. E-reunion with the Z fighters and Goku's family tested Shenku in ways that combat never could. They gathered in the Capsule Corporation's central atrium, a space designed for corporate functions that N. Ao hosted the most powerful warriors of Universe 7. Chi-Chi stood apart from the others, her expression unreadable as she studied the being who both was and wasn't her husband. Gohan remained protectively close to his mother, his scholarly demeanor replaced by wary alertness. Goten hovered uncertainly between them, curiosity warring with confusion. Vegeta leaned against a far wall, arms crossed, his glare intense enough to melt steel. Piccolo mirrored his posture on the opposite side of the room, though his expression conveyed analytical interest rather than hostility. Krillin, Master Roshi, Tien, and the others clustered in small groups, conversations falling silent as Shenku entered with Bulma. Well, Krillin finally broke the awkward silence, you definitely know how to make an entrance, buddy. Most people just bring a casserole to a reunion. The attempted humor fell flat as all eyes remained fixed on Shenku, assessing, questioning, wondering what remained of the man they had known. I understand this is difficult. Shenku began, his dual-toned voice immediately highlighting his otherness. I retain Goku's memories, his bonds with each of you, but I am not solely him anymore. Are you still my dad? Goten asked directly, stepping forward despite Chi-Chi's protective gesture. Shenku knelt to meet the boy's eyes. Your father's love for you is fundamental to who I am now. That has not changed, even if my form and nature have. But you're not just him, Chi-Chi interjected, her voice tight with controlled emotion. You're also something else. Yes, Shenku acknowledged, rising to face her directly. I cannot pretend otherwise. The dragon's essence has transformed Goku's being as much as Goku's mortality has transformed the dragon. Chi-Chi stepped forward, her diminutive stature contrasting with the formidable presence she projected. Everyone tensed, uncertain what she might do. With deliberate motion, she reached up and placed her palm against Shenku's cheek, studying his eyes with fierce intensity. You have his kindness, she said finally, her voice barely audible. Whatever else you are, that remains. She withdrew her hand and straightened her shoulders. I need time. We all do. Shenku nodded respectfully. I understand. What I don't understand. Vegeta pushed himself away from the wall, is why fusion with a wish-granting lizard was your solution to a corrupted god of destruction. His tone was accusatory, but those who knew him well recognized the genuine question beneath the hostility. Because conventional power wasn't enough, Shenku replied evenly. The entity possessing Beerus was beyond physical defeat. It required a fundamental change in the nature of reality itself. And now what? Piccolo joined the conversation, his deep voice resonating through the atrium. What does a fusion of Dragon and Saiyan intend to do with such power? Before Shenku could answer, a shimmering distortion appeared in the center of the room. The air rippled like heat waves over asphalt before parting to reveal a tall, slender figure holding an ornate staff, Whis, angel attendant to Lord Beerus. His typically pleasant expression was replaced by uncharacteristic solemnity. I believe I can answer that question, Whis stated, his gaze fixed on Shenku. Your unprecedented existence has attracted the attention of higher authorities. The Grand Priest requests your immediate presence. Quote, murmurs of concern spread through the gathered warriors. A summons from the Grand Priest, father to all angels and direct servant to Zeno, was unprecedented. Am I to be judged? Shenku asked quietly. Whis tilted his head slightly. Perhaps. Or perhaps you are to be recognized. Your actions saved multiple universes from collapse. However, his expression grew grave. Your existence represents a fundamental breach of cosmic order. Dragons and mortals occupy separate metaphysical categories for good reason. I'm coming with him, Bulma declared unexpectedly, stepping forward to stand beside Shenku. Whis raised an elegant eyebrow. This is not a scientific expedition, Ms. Briefs. The realm we must travel to is not designed for mortal presence. I don't care, Bulma countered, her chin lifting in characteristic defiance. Someone needs to represent Earth's interests, and I've had more experience with cosmic beings than most. Besides, she added, patting the capsule case at her belt, I've brought equipment to continue monitoring Shenku's physiological stability. I'm going too, Vegeta growled, moving to stand on Shenku's other side. If the Grand Priest or anyone else thinks they're going to eliminate this fusion without a fight, they're mistaken. Despite his ongoing rivalry with Goku, Vegeta's sense of Saiyan solidarity remained unshakable. Whis sighed delicately. I suppose there's no harm in allowing a small delegation. The Grand Priest likely anticipated such an arrangement anyway. He tapped his staff twice on the floor, creating an expanded transportation sphere. Please step inside. The journey will be disorienting for mortals. As they prepared to depart, Gohan approached Shenku. Be careful, he said quietly. And remember who you were. Shenku nodded once, then joined Bulma and Vegeta within the sphere. Whis tapped his staff a third time, and they vanished from earthly reality. The journey through Divine Realms transcended conventional movement through space. They traveled not by distance but by conceptual proximity, sliding between layers of existence that operated under fundamentally different physical laws. For Shenku, the transition felt natural, his dragon aspects recognizing pathways between dimensions that his Saiyan consciousness could barely comprehend. For Bulma and Vegeta, however, the experience was profoundly disorienting. Focus on your center of gravity, Shenku advised as he noticed Bulma's discomfort. Your inner ear can't interpret multidimensional movement, but your ki can. Easy for you to say, she muttered, gripping his arm for stability. Some of us didn't merge with cosmic entities last week. Vegeta maintained his stoic expression, though the unusual pallor of his face betrayed his own discomfort. How much longer, Whis? He demanded. We have arrived, the angel announced as reality solidified around them once more. They stood upon a vast crystalline platform floating in a void filled with gently pulsing lights of various colors. Unlike the relatively comprehensible palace of Zeno, this realm existed partially outside conventional space-time. Structures that ared distant one moment seemed immediate the next, only to shift perspective again in ways that defied Euclidean geometry. The nexus of authorities, Whis explained, gesturing with his staff. Where cosmic governing principles intersect with personified power. At the center of the platform stood a being of such flawless beauty and perfect proportion that looking upon him caused physical pain to mortal eyes. The Grand Priest smiled benignly, but his eyes, reflecting infinite depth, remained unreadable. Welcome, Sun Shenku, he greeted, his voice harmonizing with the fundamental frequencies of the universe. Your emergence has created quite the stir among the higher realms. Shenku bowed respectfully, sensing the immense power contained within the Grand Priest's unassuming form. I apologize for any disruption I've caused. My creation was necessary to prevent multiversal collapse. Indeed, the Grand Priest acknowledged. And in that, you succeeded admirably. The corrupting entity has been contained. Lord Beerus is recovering, and reality has stabilized. He circled Shenku slowly, examining him from all angles. However, your continued existence presents certain complications. Such as, Bulma interjected, earning a sharp look from Whis and an amused smile from the Grand Priest. Brave mortal, he commented lightly. Intelligence often compensates for power, doesn't it? Hi's expression grew more serious as he addressed her question. Dragons are cosmic constants, fundamental aspects of reality's balance. They embody the principle of possibility, of change within structured parameters. Merging such a being with mortal consciousness creates unpredictable ripple effects through all existence. You're saying he's dangerous, Vegeta stated bluntly. All unprecedented things are dangerous. The Grand Priest corrected, though not necessarily harmful. The distinction is important. From the periphery of the platform, another figure approached, tall, slender, with pale blue skin and white hair arranged in an elegant updo. She carried a staff similar to Whis's, though more delicately crafted. Vados, Whis acknowledged his sister with slight surprise. I wasn't aware you would be joining us. The female angel's expression remained placid, though her eyes studied Shenku with unmistakable interest. Universe 6 experienced significant temporal anomalies during the recent crisis. Lord Champa remains indisposed. I come representing my universe's interests. Of course, the Grand Priest nodded. Multiple perspectives will be valuable in this discussion. He turned back to Shenku. Now, let us address the primary concern. Your fusion has created capabilities previously reserved for higher entities. The ability to grant wishes, manipulation of dimensional boundaries, potential influence over temporal constants. I have no interest in usurping cosmic authority, Shenku stated firmly. My purpose is protection and balance, not dominion. Noble intentions, Vados observed, her melodic voice carrying subtle layers of meaning. Though intentions evolve as understanding grows. Something in her tone caught Shenku's attention, not accusation but genuine philosophical consideration. He met her gaze directly, sensing curiosity rather than hostility behind her formal demeanor. A valid concern, Shenku acknowledged. Power shapes perspective. The dragon knows this well from eons of granting wishes. And what of the Saiyan's influence? Vados inquired, moving closer with fluid grace. Does his warrior nature amplify or temper the dragon's power? The question cut to the heart of Shenku's internal experience, the ongoing negotiation between Goku's passionate engagement with life and Shenron's eternal cosmic perspective. They balance each other, he explained. Aware of Bulma monitoring this exchange with scientific interest and Vegeta with strategic assessment. The dragon's wisdom channels the Saiyan's strength. The Saiyan's compassion gives purpose to the dragon's power. The Grand Priest nodded thoughtfully. A harmony of opposites, potentially stable, yet inherently dynamic. He turned to address all present. I have reached a preliminary decision. Sun Shenku will be permitted continued existence, under certain conditions. Relief washed through Bulma visibly, while Vegeta's stance relaxed marginally. Shenku maintained his composure. Huff internally. Both his dragon and Saiyan aspects acknowledged the significance of this judgment. What conditions? He asked. First, the Grand Priest raised a finger. You must undergo evaluation by representatives from various cosmic authorities, gods of destruction, supreme Kais, and angels from all 12 universes. A cosmic committee. Bulma sounded incredulous. Second, the Grand Priest continued. You must refrain from granting wishes that would alter fundamental universal constants or circumvent established cosmic hierarchies. Shenku nodded acceptance. Reasonable. Third, the Grand Priest's expression grew more severe. You must address the dimensional instabilities your creation has caused. The barriers between realms, particularly between mortal universes and the ancestral dragon realm, have weakened. Dragon realm. Bulma's scientific curiosity immediately engaged. There's an entire realm of dragons. Vados answered before the Grand Priest could respond. The Origi, null dimension from which all wish-granting dragons descend. A place of primal creative potential where possibility itself takes form. Her gaze lingered on Shenku. No mortal has ever entered its boundaries. Until now, Shenku realized. Understanding flooding through his dual consciousness. My existence has created a bridge between realms. Precisely, the Grand Priest confirmed. And not all dragons approve of this connection. The more conservative factions view your fusion as abomination, mortal contamination of their divine essence. This explains the energy signatures I couldn't identify during our testing, Bulma muttered. Pulling out a small device and checking readings. There were fluctuations in the quantum field that didn't match known patterns. You were being observed, Vados stated directly to Shenku. Judged not only by cosmic authorities but by the very species that comprises half your being. Before further discussion could develop, a shuddering vibration passed through the crystalline platform. The lights in the void flickered, and reality itself seemed to waver momentarily. The Grand Priest's expression shifted to one of alert concern. It appears our time has been cut short. We have visitors. The air at the edge of the platform rippled, then tore open in a jagged gash of emerald energy. 3 figures emerged, humanoid in basic shape but clearly not human. Their bodies appeared composed of interlocking scales that shifted like liquid metal, catching light from impossible angles. Their elongated faces featured no visible mouths, only glowing eyes of various colors, crimson, amber, and violet. Dragon Realm Assassins, Whis identified them, his staff raised defensively. How did they penetrate the Nexus barriers? Through me, Shenku realized with sudden clarity. My existence created the pathway they're using. The Dragon Assassins moved with fluid grace, their limbs elongating and reshaping as they advanced. They carried no visible weapons, but the air around their hands distorted with concentrated magical energy. The abomination must be unmade, the crimson-eyed leader projected telepathically, the message reverberating painfully through the minds of all present. The separation must be restored. The Grand Priest stepped forward, his power manifesting as a barely perceptible distortion of light around his form. Your presence here violates multiple cosmic statutes. Return to your realm immediately. This matter transcends your authority, attendant, the Dragon Assassin responded dismissively. It concerns the fundamental integrity of draconic essence. Shenku moved protectively in front of Bulma and Vegeta. This conflict is between your kind and me. Leave the others out of it. The assassins paused, studying him with ancient, inhuman eyes. You speak as though you are separate from us, the amber-eyed dragon observed. Yet you carry our collective essence within your hybrid form. I am both dragon and mortal, Shenku acknowledged. Neither aspect can be removed without destroying the whole. Then destruction is necessary, the violet-eyed assassin concluded, lunging forward with impossible speed. What followed was unlike any battle the Z-fighters had ever witnessed. The dragon assassins attacked not just with physical force but with conceptual magic that targeted the fundamental nature of their opponent. Where they struck, reality itself wavered, attempting to separate draconic essence from mortal form. Shenku countered with his unique fusion of techniques, Goku's martial mastery enhanced by draconic dimensional manipulation. He didn't merely dodge attacks but shifted partially between planes of existence, his form becoming momentarily translucent before resolidifying to deliver devastating counters. Remarkable, Vados observed, making no move to intervene. He fights using principles rather than mere techniques. Vegeta growled with frustration, his aura flaring as he prepared to join the battle despite the cosmic power differential. We can't just stand here. Actually, we must. Whis restrained him with a gentle but immovable hand. This conflict operates on levels that would destroy you instantly if you interfered. Bulma, meanwhile, had activated a series of scanning devices from her capsule case, frantically recording data from the unprecedented encounter. The energy patterns are rewriting local reality. It's not just combat, it's negotiation of fundamental principles through force. The crimson-eyed assassin manifested swirling vortices of emerald flame that didn't burn but rather unmade whatever they touched, erasing portions of the crystalline platform into nothingness. Shenku responded by drawing on his dragon aspect transformation, his hair shifting to luminous emerald. Scales emerged more prominently along his form. You pervert our sacred powers, the assassin accused, launching concentrated bolts of anti-creation energy. I evolved them, Shenku countered, catching the bolts and transmuting them into spirals of golden light that he redirected toward his attacker. The battle escalated beyond conventional comprehension, becoming a contest of will and concept as much as power. The assassins fought with increasing desperation, coordinating their attacks to target perceived weaknesses in Shenku's integrated being. Moments of vulnerability appeared when the Gon and Saiyan aspects briefly desynchronized under stress, creating openings for their assault. A particularly vicious combination attack drove Shenku to one knee, emerald blood, neither fully mortal nor fully draconic, seeping from wounds that transcended physical damage to affect his very nature. Your existence is inherently unstable, the amber-eyed assassin proclaimed with cold certainty. Sir, render to dissolution and both essences will return to their proper domains. No, Shenku's dual-toned voice resonated with absolute conviction. There is strength in unity that neither aspect possessed alone. Drawing on reserves of power that even he hadn't fully explored, Shenku brought his hands together in a familiar position, the beginning stance for Goku's signature Kamehameha. But what for? Med between his palms wasn't the traditional blue energy sphere. Instead, concentric rings of golden and emerald light expanded outward, each inscribed with draconic symbols that shifted and evolved like living things. Dragon Harmony Wave, Shenku named the technique as he released it, not as a destructive beam but as an expanding field of energy that enveloped the assassins. The dragons struggled against its effect. But the nature of the attack wasn't to destroy but to integrate. It forced synchronization between opposing energies, compelling the assassins to experience the harmony that Shenku himself embodied. Their rigid forms wavered, expressions of shock briefly visible on their alien features. When the energy dissipated, the assassins remained standing but visibly shaken, their previously fluid movements now hesitant and uncertain. The crimson-eyed leader began, unable to complete the thought. I showed you what I am, Shenku explained, his transformation subsiding as he returned to base form. Not corruption, but evolution. Not weakness, but a new kind of strength. The assassins exchanged glances, communicating through means beyond mortal perception. Without further comment, they retreated, stepping backward into the dimensional rift from which they had emerged. The tear sealed itself behind them, reality mending as though the breach had never existed. In the silence that followed, the Grand Priest regarded Shenku with newfound consideration. Most interesting. You defeated them without destruction. Destruction wasn't necessary, Shenku replied simply. They needed understanding, not elimination. Vados approached, her natural grace somehow more pronounced as she circled Shenku with undisguised interest. You created a technique that forces harmonic resonance between opposing principles. Such methodology has broader applications. Her tone carried implications beyond the immediate situation, though what specific applications she envisioned remained unclear. Something in her demeanor had shifted, professional assessment giving way to more personal curiosity. This incident confirms both the threat and the opportunity your existence represents, the Grand Priest concluded. The Dragon Realm will not abandon their opposition easily. Yet you possess means to bridge understanding that neither dragons nor mortals could achieve independently. What happens now? Bulma asked, stepping forward to stand supportively beside Shenku. Now, the Grand Priest smiled enigmatically. We proceed with the evaluation as planned. Though I believe the roster of interested parties has expanded considerably. He glanced meaningfully at Vados, whose subtle expression betrayed nothing but whose continued proximity to Shenku spoke volumes. Universe 6 hectares. Particular interest in dimensional stability, she stated smoothly. Lord Champa's recovery depends on it. I would be remiss in my duties if I didn't observe this unique being closely. Of course, the Grand Priest agreed with the faintest trace of amusement. Whis will return our guests to Earth for now. The formal evaluation will commence in 3 celestial cycles. Use that time wisely, Son Shenku. Your demonstration today was impressive, but challenges yet await. As Whis prepared to transport them back, Vados approached Shenku directly. The technique you demonstrated, it operates on principles of contemplated for millennia but never observed implemented. Perhaps we might discuss theoretical applications during your evaluation period. Before Shenku could respond, a new disturbance rippled through the Nexus. Unlike the violent tear created by the dragon assassins, this distortion appeared as a perfect circular portal rimmed with pulsating energy in shades of magenta and gold. A small, slender figure stepped through, female, with wild spiky black hair and a confident swagger entirely at odds with her diminutive stature. So this is where all the fun's happening, she announced. Dark eyes immediately finding and fixing on Shenku with predatory interest. Vados, you should have told me about this guy earlier. Caulifla, Vados acknowledged with resigned patience. UWR, expressly instructed to remain in Universe 6 during the recovery period. The young Saiyan woman shrugged dismissively. Yeah, well, sitting around while Kaba and Kale do all the heavy lifting isn't my style. She approached Shenku directly, fearlessly invading his personal space as she studied him. So you're what happens when Goku fuses with a dragon. Gotta say, not what I expected. Vegeta snorted with barely suppressed amusement. Some things transcend universal boundaries. Saiyan impulsiveness appears to be one of them. Caulifla ignored him, continuing her assessment of Shenku. Saying your power broke physics or something. That you're not just strong but different. Her eyes narrowed with characteristic Saiyan challenge. I want to fight you. Right now. Absolutely not, the Grand Priest interjected mildly. The Nexus is not a training ground for Saiyan combat enthusiasm. Caulifla looked momentarily disappointed before her expression brightened with new determination. Fine, but this isn't over. She pointed directly at Shenku's face. Me, soon. I need to see what you can do firsthand. Despite himself, Shenku felt a smile forming, the Saiyan aspect of Hi's nature responding to her unabashed challenge with familiar excitement. I look forward to it. Excellent. Whis sighed. Another complication. Shall we depart before any more unexpected guests arrive? As the transportation sphere formed around them, Shenku caught a final glimpse of Vados observing him with enigmatic interest and Caulifla's challenging grin. The cosmic implications of his existence were profound. The dangers significant. Yet in that moment, he felt an unmistakable anticipation for what was to come. The sphere activated, transporting them back toward Earth. As they traversed the boundaries between divine and mortal realms, Bulma's scientific instruments suddenly emitted urgent warning signals. Something's wrong, she announced, studying the readings with growing concern. The dimensional boundaries are destabilizing. Whis' typically serene expression tightened with concentration as he attempted to maintain their transit path. The recent conflicts have weakened the barriers further. Something is attempting to penetrate multiple universes simultaneously. Reality shuddered around them, their transportation bubble buffeted by forces that should not have been able to affect angelic travel. Through the translucent barrier, they glimpsed fragmentary images, shattered landscapes, distorted creatures, timeline variants bleeding into one another. The conspiracy extends beyond the dragon realm. Shenku realized, suddenly understanding connections his dragon aspect had sensed since the fusion. Someone or something is deliberately weakening the cosmic architecture. But why? Bulma demanded, frantically attempting to stabilize her equipment as reality fluctuated around them. To unmake the divisions between realms, Shenku answered grimly. To return all stents to primordial chaos, the state before creation was ordered and separated into discrete universes. As they finally materialized back on Earth, the sky above them bore witness to his words, Fractu. Lines spreading across the firmament like cracks in glass, revealing glimpses of other worlds, other timelines, other possibilities. The threat was greater than any of them had imagined. And Sun Shenku, neither fully dragon nor fully Saiyan but something unprecedented, stood at the center of a cosmic storm that was only beginning to gather force. Chapter 2. Realms Beyond Realms. Emerald scales flaked off Shenku's forearm, dissolving into motes of light before they touched the laboratory floor. The third transformation attempt in as many hours had ended with the same result, unstable energy FL. Fluctuations followed by partial desynchronization between his draconic and Saiyan aspects. The fusion integrity is decreasing by approximately 0.37% with each power surge, Bulma announced, eyes fixed on holographic data projections hovering above her workstation. Dark circles beneath her eyes testified to 3 sleepless nights since their return from the Nexus. At this rate, I'll destabilize completely within 2 weeks. Shenku completed her thought, examining the micro-fractures spreading across his skin like ceramic glaze under stress. The dragon essence seeks to return to its natural state. Sunrise filtered through the reinforced windows of Capsule Corporation's Dimensional Research Lab, a facility hastily repurposed after reality began cracking above West City. Civilians had been evacuated to underground shelters as dimensional breaches multiplied worldwide, each one leaking foreign energies into Earth's atmosphere. Bulma jabbed an accusatory finger at the central monitor. The real problem isn't your physiology, it's these. The screen displayed global mapping of dimensional tiers, their frequency doubling daily. Something's forcing these breaches from the other side. Your fusion instability is a symptom, not the cause. The Dragon Realm conservatives, Shenku mused, his dual-toned voice resonating with the equipment around him. They're attempting to forcibly separate me by destabilizing interdimensional boundaries. Amateurs, a new voice interjected. Vegeta stood in the doorway, arms crossed, accompanied by the diminutive form of Caulifla. The Universe 6 Saiyan had apparently foregone knocking conventional greetings, or any pretense of respecting laboratory security protocols. The famous Bulma briefs, Caulifla acknowledged with a cursory nod before focusing entirely on Shenku. You look worse than yesterday. What is she doing here? Bulma demanded, addressing Vegeta while pointedly ignoring their uninvited guest. The Saiyan prince's expression conveyed reluctant tolerance. She appeared on my gravity room roof at dawn, demanding to see him. I decided bringing her here would cause less property damage than refusing. Your dimension is hemorrhaging cosmic energy, Caulifla stated bluntly, circling Shenku with critical assessment. Universe 6 isn't much better. Weird storms, reality glitches, people seeing double. She poked his arm where scales had appeared. You're coming apart at the seams, Dragon Man. Shenku raised an eyebrow at her casual invasion of his personal space. Your concern is touching. Not concern, opportunity. Call. Ifla's eyes gleamed with unmistakable Saiyan enthusiasm for challenge. Rumor says you're the key to fixing this mess. And since I'm bored watching my universe unravel, I thought I'd help. How generous, Bulma muttered, turning back to her calculations. Unfortunately, we don't yet know how to address the interdimensional destabilization. Actually, Shenku interjected, I believe we do. All Yes turned to him as he materialized a 3-dimensional projection between his palms, a swirling nebula of interconnected pathways resembling neural networks. We need to go to the source. The Dragon Realm itself. Silence descended upon the laboratory as the implications settled over them. No mortal has ever entered the Dragon Realm, Bulma finally responded, her scientific curiosity visibly warring with practical caution. No mortal except me. Shenku indicated the draconic aspects of his physiology. Half my being originated there. I can create a pathway, temporarily. Vegeta scoffed. And, you think these dragon purists will welcome you with open arms? They've already sent assassins and are tearing apart reality to destroy you. Which is why diplomacy requires proper leverage, Shenku replied calmly. We need to understand their society, their hierarchy, their motivations beyond the surface ideological objections. You're suggesting reconnaissance, Bulma realized, already reaching for her equipment case. Gathering intelligence before confrontation. I'm suggesting understanding before judgment, Shenku corrected gently. The dragon consciousness within me holds fragments of knowledge about their realm. But it's incomplete, like remembering a homeland left in infancy. Caulifla punched her palm with characteristic impatience. So we bust in, look around, maybe crack some scaly heads if necessary. And figure out how to stop them from breaking everything. Simple. Nothing about interdimensional diplomacy with ancient cosmic entities is simple, Bulma countered, Thog. Her rapid equipment preparation betrayed her enthusiasm for the unprecedented expedition. We'll need specialized support, Shenku observed thoughtfully. Someone with knowledge of cosmic boundaries and interdimensional protocols. As if summoned by his words, the laboratory air shimmered with pale blue light. Space parted with elegant precision, forming a perfect oval portal through which Vados stepped with characteristic grace. I believe I fulfill those requirements admirably, the angel stated, her melodious voice carrying subtle layers of meaning. She surveyed the impromptu gathering with serene assessment. How fortunate that I've arrived precisely when such expertise is being discussed. Caulifla rolled her eyes. Were you seriously just waiting outside for a dramatic entrance cue? Vados smiled enigmatically. Angels have impeccable timing. It's a requirement of the position. She turned her attention to Shenku, her gaze lingering on the visible manifestations of his instability. The dimensional disturbances have accelerated beyond initial projections. The Grand Priest has authorized my direct involvement in resolution efforts. How convenient, Vegeta remarked suspiciously. Indeed, Vados agreed pleasantly. Particularly as I have information you lack. She manifested a crystalline sphere from her staff, within which swirled images of unfamiliar architecture, massy. Vase structures composed of interlocking geometric forms that seem to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The Dragon Realm capital, Ryugu-jo. Center of their governance and site of their eternal tribunal. Shenku stared at the images with strange recognition, memories not fully his own stirring within his consciousness. The eternal spire, he murmured, indicating a central structure that extended beyond conventional spatial limitations. Seat of the Dragon Elders. Precisely, Vados confirmed. Any meaningful negotiation must occur there, with the Elders' sanction. However, her expression grew serious. Unauthorized entry to the Dragon Realm is considered cosmic sacrilege. The penalty is existence erasure. So we need official entry permission, Bulma concluded. From whom? Quote, from those with established diplomatic channels to the Dragon Realm. Vados tapped her staff once, and the image shifted to display an ornate temple complex. The Order of Chronos, interdimensional Tim. Keepers who maintain relations with all cosmic realms. Caulifla groaned. Great. More bureaucracy. The Order's primary representative in this dimensional cluster is the Supreme Kai of Time, Vados continued, ignoring the interruption. She alone can grant passage credentials recognized by Dragon Realm authorities. And where do we find this Supreme Kai? Vegeta demanded. That, Vados replied with a slight smile, is where matters become complicated. The time nest exists outside conventional space-time. Access requires specific temporal coordinates and dimensional folding techniques. Bulma was already frantically taking notes. Temporal coordinates. You're talking about literal time travel pathways. More accurately, traveling through the spaces between time, Vados clarified. The Supreme Kai of Time doesn't merely observe history, she exists perpendicular to it. Enough theory, Caulifla interjected impatiently. Can you get us there or not? I cannot, Vados admitted. Angels are specifically restricted from direct intervention in temporal matters. However, she turned to Shenku, your unique nature might allow you to perceive the pathways. Dragon magic inherently connects to all fundamental forces, including time. All eyes turned to Shenku, who stood in silent contemplation, his dual consciousness searching through layers of inherited knowledge and instinct. After a moment, he nodded slowly. I can sense them, he confirmed. Faint currents in reality's underlying structure. He extended his hand, palm upward, where motes of golden and emerald energy danced in complex patterns. With proper focusing, I might create a temporary doorway. The technical requirements for stable temporal apertures are astronomically complex, Bulma objected, though her expressio betrayed intellectual excitement rather than genuine opposition. Which is why you'll assist him, Vados suggested smoothly. Your technological expertise combined with his instinctive capabilities could accomplish what neither could alone. A harmonization of approaches, Shenku agreed, meeting Bulma's eyes with quiet confidence. Something unspoken passed between them, a recognition of complementary strengths, of potential unrealized. Bulma's initial scientific detachment had evolved during their work together, her curiosity about Shenku's unique existence developing dimensions beyond professional interest. "I'll need 6 hours to modify the quantum stabilizer," she decided, already moving toward her workbench. "Vegeta, I need the gravity room's auxiliary power core." The Saiyan prince nodded curtly, departing without argument, a testament to the situation's gravity. While preparations proceed, Vados suggested to Shenku, "Perhaps we might discuss certain aspects of draconic energy manipulation relevant to our journey. Your technique during the assassin confrontation demonstrated principles I find intriguing. As that angel speak for, give me private combat lessons?" Caulifla questioned bluntly, earning a cool glance from Vados. "It's angel speak for strategic capability assessment," Vados corrected with dignity. "Though practical demonstration would indeed be valuable." Shenku inclined his head in agreement. The northern mountain range should provide adequate space and privacy for energy work. As they prepared to depart, Bulma looked up from her equipment assembly. "Be back in 5 hours. And try not to destabilize further with whatever energy work you're planning." "Your concern is noted," Vados responded with the faintest hint of amusement. "It's not concern," Bulma retorted, echoing Caulifla's earlier disclaimer with inadvertent irony. "It's project management." Shenku's lips curved slightly as he followed Vados toward the exit, Caulifla trailing with undisguised curiosity. For beings of such different origins and temperaments to coalesce around a common purpose, perhaps there was hope for interdimensional understanding after all. Northern Mount. Ains stretched toward cloud-pierced skies, their ancient stone faces bearing silent witness to the unprecedented gathering on a remote plateau. Shenku stood centered within a complex array of energy patterns he had inscribed into the rock. Golden light pulsing beneath his feet in time with his measured breathing. Across from him, Vados observed with analytical precision, her staff occasionally tap. Ping to adjust the flow of energies around them. Caulifla perched cross-legged on a boulder at the plateau's edge, attempting to project boredom despite her evident fascination with techniques beyond standard key manipulation. Dragon magic operates on symbolic principles rather than direct force application, Shenku explained, his dual-tone voice carrying easily through the thin mountain air. Where Saiyan power pushes against reality, draconic power rewrites its underlying patterns. The distinction between brute force and fundamental alteration, Vados nodded. Angels understand this conceptually, though our implementations differ significantly. With deliberate movements, Shenku traced intricate patterns in the air before him. Where his fingers passed, reality seemed to thin, becoming translucent. Dimensional barriers aren't solid walls but permeable membranes of possibility. Finding the correct resonance allows passage without disruption. Like picking a lock instead of breaking down a door. Caulifla called from her observation point. Shenku nodded approvingly at her analogy. Precisely. Though the lock, in this case involves multidimensional mathematical principles beyond conventional understanding. Yet your fusion allows intuitive navigation of these principles, Vados noted, circling him with clinical interest. The dragon's inherent connection to cosmic architect. Churei combined with Goku's adaptive combat instincts creates unprecedented problem-solving methodology. You talk like a textbook, Caulifla complained, jumping down from her perch to approach them. Just show us how it works in practice. Shenku exchanged glances with Vados, who inclined her head in elegant acquiescence. A practical demonstration would indeed be instructive, she agreed. Very well. Shenku centered himself, drawing upon the draconic aspects of his power. Emerald energy flowed across his skin like liquid light, settling into patterns reminiscent of scales. Observe not just what happens, but how it happens. With a precisely controlled gesture, he opened his palm toward a nearby boulder. Instead of a destructive energy blast, a shimmering field expanded to encompass the massive stone. Within this field, the boulder's fundamental properties shifted, becoming translucent, then gaseous, then reconstituting as crystal before returning to its original state. Matter transmutation. Vados identified the technique, her usual detachment tinged with genuine appreciation. Temporary rewriting of atomic structure through probability manipulation. Caulifla whistled. Fancy. But how does this help us against dragon assassins? Because, Shenku explained patiently, the same principles apply to living beings, including dragons. Their physical forms are manifestations of magical energy given shape through cosmic will. Understanding the mathematical foundations of that manifestation allows counter-harmonics to be applied. Like sound waves canceling each other out, Caulifla realized. Her quick combat mind grasping the tactical implications. You can disrupt their abilities by creating opposing patterns. In theory, Shenku acknowledged. Though practical applicativity on against hostile dragons remains largely untested. Then let's test it, she challenged, dropping into a fighting stance. Use it against me. Vados raised an elegant eyebrow. Saiyan enthusiasm foe. Our self-endangerment remains consistent across universes, I see. It's not endangerment if you know what you're doing, Caulifla countered. And he needs combat testing against someone who won't shatter if he makes a mistake. She grinned at Shenku. Unless you're scared. The taunt was transparent but effective. Shenku's Saiyan nature responded to the challenge despite his draconic wisdom counseling restraint. A controlled demonstration only, he stipulated. Limited intensity. Sure. Caulifla agreed too readily, her aura already flaring brilliant blue as she accessed her Super Saiyan form. Ready when you are, Dragon Man. Quote. What followed was less combat than choreographed dance, Caulifla's aggressive Saiyan techniques flowing like water around Shenku's measured responses. He deliberately avoided direct energy projection, instead focusing on the spatial manipulation aspects of dragon magic. Where Caulifla struck, reality briefly thinned, her attacks passing through temporarily intangible sections of his form. When she launched energy blasts, he didn't deflect but rather altered their fundamental composition, transforming destructive force into harmless light. Vados observed with increasingly undisguised interest, her staff occasionally tapping to take measurements of the energy exchanges. Fascinating harmonization of offensive and defensive principles. Neither nullification nor redirection but transmutation of purpose. Frustrated by her inability to land effective strikes, Caulifla escalated, her form shifting to Super Saiyan 2 as lightning crackled around her compact frame. Stop playing defense, she challenged, her attacks becoming faster, more creative, more unpredictable. Shenku maintained his composed response pattern until a particularly clever feint brought her within his guard. Her fist connecting solidly with his chest. The impact triggered an unexpected reaction, emerald scales erupting across his torso as draconic defense mechanisms activated autonomously. Enough, he declared, catching her next strike in his palm. Their auras intermingled, her electric blue against his emerald gold, creating shimmering patterns where they touched. For a moment, they remained locked in opposition, neither yielding. Something passed between them in that contact. Recognition beyond the physical, acknowledgement of kindred warrior spirits despite their different origins. Caulifla's expression shifted from competitive aggression to something more complex, her dark eyes widening slightly as she felt the dual nature of his power resonating against her own. Her technique has unexpected applications, Vados observed, breaking the moment with deliberate timing. The harmonic principles could potentially stabilize dimensional breaches if properly calibrated. Caulifla stepped back, dropping her transformation with practiced ease. Not bad for a warm-up, she declared, though her slightly elevated breathing betrayed the exertion required to maintain her assault. Next time don't hold back so much. Next time, Shenku promised with a slight smile, his scales receding as he rebalanced his energies. The sun has reached midpoint, Vados noted, gesturing toward the sky. We should return if we wish to remain on schedule for the temporal aperture attempt. As they prepared to depart, Shenku paused, his attention caught by something beyond conventional perception. The air several meters away shimmered with subtle distortion, not the clean edges of angelic transportation but something rougher, less controlled. We're being observed, he stated quietly. Vados nodded, having sensed the same disturbance. Not Dragon Realm energy, something else. Before further investigation could occur, the distortion vanished, not collapsing but withdrawing, as though whoever watched had noticed their detection and retreated. Another player in our cosmic game, Vados mused. How intriguing. Caulifla shrugged, unimpressed. More complications. Great. Shenku remained silent, his dual consciousness processing implications beyond what he shared with his companions. The dragon aspects of his being had recognized something familiar in that distortion, something that stirred memories not fully integrated into his merged awareness. As they returned to Capsule Corporation, that nagging recognition continued to trouble him. The approaching journey to the Gone realm would not merely be an exploration of unknown territory but a return to something his draconic essence recognized as home, and feared as threat. Temporal coordinates locked, Bulma announced, her fingers dancing across holographic interface controls. The laboratory had transformed during their absence, reconfigured into a dimensional gateway chamber centered around a circular platform inscribed with mathematical symbols beyond conventional human understanding. Quantum stabilizers at maximum capacity. Whatever you're going to do, Shenku, do it now. 6 hours had passed since their Mountain training session, 6 hours during which reality's deterioration had accelerated dramatically. Outside the reinforced laboratory windows, West City's skies resembled shattered stained glass, fragments of other dimensions visible through growing cracks in the firmament. Occasional objects from foreign realities would materialize briefly before disappearing again. Buildings, vehicles, once a bewildered-looking alien creature that blinked out of existence moments after arrival. Shenku stood at the center of the platform, Vados and Caulifla positioned at precise intervals around him. Geta maintained guard position at the chamber entrance, arms crossed but senses alert for potential threats. The temporal pathway is faint but accessible, Shenku confirmed, emerald energy gathering around his hands as he reached into dimensional space. I can perceive the time nest's relative coordinates, but stabilizing a connection requires additional focus. The temporal distortions are RFERING with standard dimensional mathematics, Vados observed, her staff glowing with complementary energy as she reinforced Shenku's efforts. Reality itself resists further manipulation after so many breaches. Then push harder, Caulifla suggested bluntly, her own aura flaring to contribute raw power to the endeavor. Bulma monitored equipment readings with growing concern. Dimensional stress. Factors approaching critical thresholds. Whatever you're attempting needs to happen within the next 60 seconds or we abort. Shenku closed his eyes, drawing deeper on his dual nature. The Saiyan aspect provided determined focus. The dragon essence contributed ancient knowledge of cosmic architecture. Where they perfectly harmonized, new understanding emerged, not merely perception of dimensions as separate domains but comprehension of the interconnected web binding all reality together. There, he murmured, fingers tracing precise patterns in the air before him. Where they passed, space thinned, becoming translucent. I can see it. The time nest exists perpendicular to conventional reality, not above or below but adjacent along an axis we don't normally perceive. The translucent area expanded, forming a circular portal approximately 2 meters in diameter. Through it, they glimpsed an impossible landscape, floating islands suspended in multicolored void, ancient structures defying conventional architectural principles. And at the center, a massive tree whose branches seemed to contain entire galaxies. The cosmic Chronos tree, Vados identified the central feature with something approaching reverence. Nexus point of all timelines. Portal stabilized, Bulma confirmed, relief evident in her voice. But it won't hold for long. Dimensional integrity is fluctuating. Then we proceed immediately, Shenku decided. Bulma, your monitoring equipment is prepared. The scientist patted her capsule case confidently. Everything I need to track dimensional variables and your fusion stability. Plus a few surprises that might come in handy. I still don't understand why we need bureaucratic permission to enter Dragon Realm, Caulifla complained as they prepared to cross the threshold. We could just have Dragon Man here open a direct portal. Because, Vados explained with angelic patience, unauthorized entry would immediately trigger cosmic defense mechanisms. We would be terminated before achieving our objective. The Supreme Kai of Time can provide dimensional diplomatic credentials recognized by all cosmic authorities. Fine, Caulifla conceded. Just saying a direct approach would be faster. And fatally short-sighted, Vegeta commented dryly from his position by the door. Not everything can be solved through Saiyan bullheadedness. Coming from the Prince of all Saiyans. The observation carried particular weight. Bulma completed final equipment checks, then moved to join the departure group. Before she could reach the portal platform, however, reality shuddered around them. The laboratory lights flickered as a massive temporal shockwave rolled through Earth's dimension. Energy surge detected, Bulma shouted as warning alarms blared from multiple instruments. Something's forcing its way through nearby dimensional space. The air beside their carefully constructed portal tore open, not with the precision of Shenku's created doorway but violently. Edges ragged and pulsing with unstable energy. From within this unauthorized breach emerged three figures, humanoid but clearly not human. Two appeared male, one female, all sharing distinctive blue-green skin and flame-like orange hair. Their armor bore unfamiliar insignias, their eyes glowed with unnatural amber light, and they moved with the confident grace of experienced combatants. Hirajan. Vegeta identified them immediately, dropping into combat stance. Space pirates from the far quadrants. The female stepped forward, her calculating gaze assessing each occupant of the laboratory before settling on Shenku. Unlike her companions, whose expressions conveyed mindless aggression, her features suggested intelligent assessment. The dragon hybrid, she stated in a melodious voice at odds with her warrior appearance. Exactly as described, she performed a mocking half-bow. Zangya of the Hirajan Vanguard. My employer sends regards, and an invitation you won't be declining. Your employer has poor timing. Shenku responded calmly, though his stance shifted subtly to protective positioning between the intruders and his companions. We have urgent business elsewhere. More urgent than preventing the complete dissolution of dimensional boundaries. Zangya questioned with false sweetness. I think not. She gestured casually, and her subordinates moved to flanking positions with practiced coordination. You will accompany us to meet Lord Mizuma, who has great interest in your unique existence. Lord who? Caulifla demanded, her aura already flaring with combat readiness. Never heard of him. Few have. Zangya acknowledged. He prefers to operate beyond conventional awareness. A collector of cosmic anomalies and architect of, she gestured toward the fractured sky visible through the windows, current opportunities. Understanding dawned in Shenku's expression. He's responsible for the dimensional breaches. Not the Dragon Realm conservatives. They merely provided the catalyst. Zangya confirmed with a cold smile. Lord Mizuma recognized the potential in their opposition to your existence. A weakening of barriers that could be exploited for greater purpose. Enough talk. The larger male Hirajan growled, energy gathering around his fists. Lord Mizuma wants the hybrid intact, but said nothing about his companions. Intact is relative, Zangya corrected smoothly. Conscious and mostly functional will suffice. The laboratory erupted into chaos as both Hirajan males attacked simultaneously, one targeting Vados, the other Bulma. Their strategy became immediately apparent. Neutralize support personnel before focusing on the primary target. They had severely miscalculated their opposition. Vados didn't merely defend against her attacker, she didn't move at all. The Hirajan warrior's fist stopped 1 millimeter from her serene face, arrested by invisible force that cracked his armor and sent fracture lines racing across his arm. Angels, do not engage in combat with lesser entities, she informed him calmly. It violates cosmic protocol. With delicate precision, she tapped her staff once on the floor. The Hirajan warrior disappeared, dimensional space folding around him. I have deposited him approximately 50,000 light-years from here. The journey home should provide adequate time for reflection. The second attacker fared no better. Lunging toward Bulma with brutal intent, he found himself intercepted by two Saiyans simultaneously, Vegeta and Caulifla moving with such speed that they appeared to arrive at identical moments from opposite directions. Pathetic, Vegeta sneered, catching the attacker's arm in an unbreakable grip. Amateur hour, Caulifla agreed, her fist already buried in the Hirajan's solar plexus. The unfortunate warrior collapsed between them, unconscious before he hit the ground. Throughout this rapid exchange, Shenku and Zangya remained motionless, evaluating each other with calculating precision. Unlike her subordinates, she had made no aggressive move, her posture suggesting she understood the true power differentials in the room. Your companions are formidable, she acknowledged without apparent concern for her defeated teammates. Though I expected nothing less from those who associate with such a unique being. You've made a strategic error, Shenku informed her quietly. Not in underestimating us, but in serving someone who would deliberately destabilize dimensional reality for personal gain. Something flickered in Zangya's expression, brief but unmistakable doubt. Lord Mazuma's vision transcends conventional understanding. The barriers between dimensions are artificial constraints imposed by lesser cosmic entities. Their dissolution represents freedom, not destruction. Freedom for what purpose? Shenku challenged, taking one step toward her. And at what cost? Before she could respond, both their carefully constructed portal and the Harajan's ragged breach began to fluctuate wildly. Dimensional energies interacting in unpredictable patterns. Portal destabilization imminent, Bulma warned, frantically working controls to contain the energy discharge. The competing dimensional apertures are creating harmonic interference patterns. We need to close both immediately, Vados stated, moving to assist with her staff's energy. No time, Shenku countered, assessing the rapidly deteriorating situation. The reaction cascade has already begun. Our only option is immediate transit before total collapse. Transit through which portal? Vegeta demanded. Neither is stable enough alone. Shenku realized, emerald energy gathering around his hands as he attempted to influence the chaotic dimensional forces. They're merging into an unpredictable hybrid pathway. The two portals began to bleed into each other, the precise circular edge of their constructed doorway melding with the ragged tear created by the Harajan. Colors swirled together, creating a turbulent maelstrom of interdimensional energy. Destination coordinates scrambling, Bulma reported, alarm evident in her voice. I can't determine where this will lead. We have approximately 10 eons before catastrophic dimensional collapse, Vados announced with remarkable composure given the circumstance. The energy discharge would destroy this facility and everyone within it. Then we jump, Caulifla decided immediately, grabbing the unconscious Harajan warrior by his collar. Better somewhere unknown than definitely dead here. Agreed, Shenku concurred, moving toward the unstable combined portal. Bulma, Vegeta, don't waste breath stating the obvious, Vegeta interrupted, moving to Bulma's side protectively. We go together. Zangya's cold calculation visibly warred with elf preservation as she assessed her limited options. With grudging acceptance of necessity, she joined their group at the portal's edge. For the record, she stated to no one in particular, this significantly exceeds my contractual hazard parameters. The merged portal pulsed once, twice, then began to collapse inward. Shenku reached out with both draconic and Saiyan power, temporarily stabilizing the aperture through sheer force of will. Now, he commanded, as one unified group, Angel, Saiyans, Human, Harajan, and Dragon Hybrid, they leapt into swirling interdimensional chaos. Reality fragm entered around them like shattered crystal, each shard reflecting distorted images of places that shouldn't exist together. The sensation of falling without direction, of being simultaneously compressed and expanded, assaulted their senses beyond comprehension. Only Vados maintained complete composure, her angelic nature partially insulated from the disorientation of interdimensional transit. When existence reasserted itself, they found themselves sprawled across an impossible landscape. Beneath them spread crystalline ground that hummed with subdued energy. Above stretched not sky but what appeared to be the underside of an ocean. Waves moving in slow motion across an upside-down surface. Surrounding them on all sides, floating islands drifted through multicolored atmosphere, each supporting G-structures that defied conventional architectural principles. Well, Bulma observed dryly as she checked her equipment for damage, we're definitely not in Kansas anymore. The dimensional overlap has deposited us in what appears to be a pocket realm, Vados explained, her staff glowing as she analyzed their surroundings. A buffer space between established dimensions. Great, Caulifla groaned, dusting crystalline particles from her clothing. Stuck between dimensions. That's exactly what we needed. Their unconscious Harajan captive remained insensate, though his breathing had stabilized. Zangya stood slightly apart from the group, her calculating gaze assessing their surroundings with professional thoroughness. This realm has stable physical constants despite its unusual appearance, she noted clinically. Breathable atmosphere, standard gravity, sustainable temperature. Survivable, if not ideal. Shenku walked several paces from the group, his connection to draconic essence allowing him to sense aspects of their environment beyond conventional perception. This place exists at the intersection of multiple dimensional boundaries. A nexus point where realities naturally overlap without fully merging. Can you get us out? Vegeta demanded bluntly. Not immediately, Shenku admitted. The portal collapse has temporarily diminished my dimensional manipulation abilities. They should regenerate with time. How much time? Bulma asked, already unpacking monitoring equipment from her capsules. Difficult to determine. Here, temporal flow appears inconsistent. He gestured toward distant floating islands, where objects moved at visibly different speeds depending on their location. Some areas experience acceleration, others deceleration. Fascinating from a scientific perspective, Bulma acknowledged. But strategically problematic. Vegeta surveyed their stranded group with the practiced assessment of a warrior prince. We establish a secure position, inventory resources, and determine immediate survival needs. Long-term planning can wait until we understand our environment. For once, we agree completely, Zhenya stated, earning suspicious glares from the others. Oh, now you want to cooperate? Caulifla challenged, stepping toward the Harajan woman aggressively. After trying to kidnap Dragon Man and getting us stuck here, Zhenya remained unperturbed by the Saiyans' hostility. Pragmatism supersedes prior objectives when circumstances change this dramatically. My immediate survival depends on cooperation with the most capable individuals present, which would be all of you. How reassuring, Bulma commented sarcastically. Nothing builds trust like naked self-interest. Would you prefer I lie about noble intentions? Zhenya countered with brutal honesty. I serve my own interests first, as does everyone with sufficient self-awareness to admit it. Currently, those interests align with yours. Before the argument could escalate, Shenku intervened. Regardless of how we arrived here, we now share the same predicament. Cooperation improves everyone's chances. He turned to Zhenya with direct intensity. However, information is our most valuable resource. What exactly does your employer want with me, and how is he exploiting the dimensional weaknesses? The Harajan woman measured him with calculating assessment before apparently eyeing transparency offered the best strategic advantage. Lord Mizuma believes the artificial separation of dimensions represents cosmic imprisonment, she explained clinically. He seeks to restore what he calls primal unity, the theoretical state before reality was divided into discrete universes. That's cosmically insane, Bulma interjected. Complete dimensional collapse would erase all existing structures of reality. Nothing would survive. He claims otherwise, Zhenya countered without particular conviction. Something about achieving transcendent existence beyond conventional limitations. She shrugged elegantly. I don't share his quasi-religious fervor for interdimensional apocalypse. My contract specified asset acquisition, not reality dissolution. And I'm the asset, Shenku surmised. Your unique nature, dragon essence merged with mortal form, represents exactly the kind of boundary violation his theories require. Zhenya's expression suggested professional assessment rather than personal investment. You're living proof that fundamental cosmic categories can be transcended. How flattering to be the poster child for dimensional apocalypse, Shenku remarked dryly. Vados, who had been silently analyzing their surroundings, rejoined the conversation. This information aligns with certain interdimensional threat assessments the Grand Priest has monitored for millennia. Mizuma is likely not his true identity, but an assumed name taken from ancient cosmic mythology. You know who he really is? Bulma asked. I have suspicions, Vados replied carefully. Which I am not currently authorized to share even under these circumstances. Angelic protocols remain binding regardless of dimensional displacement. Wonderful, Vegeta growled. Cosmic bureaucracy continues even between dimensions. Shenku had moved away slightly during this exchange, his attention caught by something beyond the group's immediate vicinity. At the edge of their crystalline plateau, reality seemed thinner, more permeable. Approaching this boundary cautiously, he placed his palm against what appeared to be solid surface but felt like liquid membrane. There's something on the other side, he announced, drawing everyone's attention. Another pocket dimension adjacent to this one. Is it a way out? Caulifla asked hopefully, joining him at the boundary. Not to conventional reality, Shenku clarified, but potentially to somewhere more stable than here. As the group gathered at this dimensional membrane, their unconscious Harajan captive finally stirred, groaning as he regained consciousness. Caulifla kicked him lightly but without real malice. Welcome back to the disaster you helped create, she informed him cheerfully. The disoriented warrior blinked in confusion, taking in their impossible surroundings with growing alarm. Where? Pocket dimension. Stuck between realities. Your fault, Caulifla summarized efficiently. Your boss wants to destroy everything, and you, our partner there, she gestured toward Zangya, has decided cooperation beats dying alone. Tactfully explained, Zangya commented with faint irony. The male Harajan struggled to his feet, visibly processing this information before his training reasserted itself. He fell into position slightly behind Zangya, deferring to her authority with ingrained discipline. Kogu, she addressed him. Situati, on assessment. We are temporarily aligned with these individuals for mutual survival. You will comply accordingly. He nodded once, professional demeanor replacing confusion. Understood, Commander. With this organizational matter settled, attention returned to the dimensional boundary Shenku had discovered. Bulma had unpacked a compact scanning device, its readings causing her eyebrows to rise with scientific interest. The membrane appears semi-permeable at molecular level, she reported. Theoretically traversable with sufficient energy application. Allow me, Vados offered, her staff glowing as she approached the boundary. With precise technique, she traced a circular pattern against the membrane, causing it to thin progressively until a translucent opening appeared. I've temporarily stabilized a passage. However, I cannot guarantee conditions on the other side. Through this opening, they glimpsed a landscape dramatically different from their current location, a vast library extending beyond vision. Shelves reaching impossible heights, containing not books but glowing orbs of various colors and sizes. The Akashic dimension, Shenku identified it immediately, Draconic Knoll. Edge surfacing through his merged consciousness. Repository of all possible realities and timelines. Is it safe? Vegeta demanded practically. Safer than remaining here, Vados assessed. This POC, Ket dimension shows signs of increasing instability. The Akashic realm, while not our intended destination, possesses fundamental constants that should support continued existence. Sometimes the bees, we can hope for is slightly less doomed than before, Bulma observed with gallows humor as she repacked her equipment. Let's go before our current slightly doomed location becomes completely doomed. One by one, they passed through Vados's stabilized opening, first Shenku, then Bulma with Vegeta protectively close, followed by Caulifla practically shoving the reluctant Kogu ahead of her. Zangya moved with practiced grace, betraying no apprehension despite the extraordinary circumstances. Vados entered last, sealing the portal behind them with a delicate motion of her staff. The Akashic dimension enveloped them in profound silence, not the absence of sound but its perfect, crystalline clarity. Each footstep, each breath, existed as discrete auditory event untainted by background noise. The library extended in all directions, defying conventional spatial limitations. Glowing orbs lined countless shelves, each containing what appeared to be moving images of places, events, and people. Timeline fragments, Vados explained quietly, her voice carrying perfectly despite its softness. Each sphere contains a moment, a possibility, a pathway reality might follow. So this is where time goes to die, Caulifla remarked, peering curiously at a nearby orb containing images of a battle, familiar figures moving through combat sequences that never occurred in their experienced reality. Not die, Shenku corrected gently. Nothing truly ends here. All possibilities exist simultaneously, whether realized in primary timelines or not. As they cautiously advanced through towering shelves, the air before them shimmered with gentle luminescence. The light coalesced into humanoid form, diminutive, female, with delicate features, magenta hair, and ancient eyes that belied her youthful appearance. Her ornate clothing marked her as Kai royalty, though of unfamiliar design. Visitors, she greeted them, her voice simultaneously young and timeless. How unusual, and problematic. Despite her words, her expression conveyed curiosity rather than hostility. I am Chronoa, Supreme Kai of Time. And you, her gaze fixed on Shenku with particular interest, are an absolute nightmare for my record-keeping systems. We apologize for our unscheduled arrival, Vados responded with formal politeness. Dimensional instability necessitated emergency transit. Yes, reality falling apart, barriers collapsing. Cosmic order unraveling. Chronoa waved dismissively, though her eyes remained sharp with assessment. I'm well aware. Hard to miss when you're responsible for maintaining temporal integrity across all dimensions. She approached Shenku directly, circling him with professional interest. So you're the famous fusion dragon and Saiyan in one package. Do you have any idea how many timeline branches you've created? My staff is working overtime. An unfortunate but necessary response to greater threat, Shenku replied, meeting her ancient gaze respectfully. Debatable, Chronoa countered, though without genuine censure. Though I suppose imminent multiversal collapse justifies certain improvisations. She sighed with the weariness of one who had witnessed countless cosmic crises. I assume you're here seeking passage credentials to the Dragon Realm. That was your original destination before the dimensional mishap. Your awareness is impressive, Vados acknowledged. Supreme Kai of Time, Chronoa reminded them with faint amusement. Keeping track of who's going where across all possible timelines is literally my job description. She gestured for them to follow as S. He began walking between the towering shelves. Come along. Standing around won't solve collapsing reality. As they followed their diminutive guide, the library shifted around them, shelves rearranging themselves without apparent movement. Pathways appearing and disappearing with fluid unpredictability. Despite the disorienting environment, Chronoa navigated with absolute confidence, occasionally pausing to adjust a misaligned orb or murmur comments to unseen assistants. The temporal distortions have accelerated beyond initial projections, she informed them as they walked. Whatever your mysterious Mazuma is doing, he's becoming more efficient at exploiting dimensional weaknesses. You know about Mazuma? Zhangya questioned sharply, earning a dismissive glance from the Time Kai. Please. Cosmic-level threats with reality-ending ambitions always end up in my jurisdiction eventually. Chronoa's youthful features briefly displayed the weariness of her true age. Though this one has Prov. N particularly adept at obscuring his historical footprint. They arrived at a circular clearing within the endless library, where a massive desk covered in scrolls, artifacts, and glowing instruments dominated the space. Behind it rose a wall displaying countless timelines represented as luminous threads of varying colors and intensities. Several threads pulsed in alarming crimson, others faded to near transparency. The Temporal Observatory, Chronoa announced, taking her position behind the desk with practiced authority. From here, I monitor all possible reality branches and authorize interventions when necessary. And our situation qualifies as necessary intervention? Bulma asked, her scientific curiosity temporarily overriding concern for their predicament. When multiple primary timelines approach extinction points simultaneously, Chronoa gestured toward the most severely compromised threads. Yes, that generally meets the threshold for necessary in my administrative guidelines. She withdrew a crystalline cube from within her robes, placing it carefully on the desk before them. The cube contained swirling energy patterns that periodically formed into recognizable symbols before dissolving again. This is a universal transit authorization, she explained. Essentially diplomatic credentials recognized by all cosmic authorities, including Dragon Realm Eternal Tribunal. Her expression grew serious as she addressed Shenku directly. However, even with this, your reception will likely be challenging. Dragon conservatives view your existence as fundamental sacrilege. Yet we must go, Shenku stated with quiet determination. The dimensional breaches originate there, even if Mazuma is exploiting them for his own purposes. Indeed, Chronoa agreed. Though why? Our motivations extend beyond mere crisis resolution, don't they? Her ancient eyes saw through his composed exterior to the internal conflict beneath. The dragon essence within you seeks reconnection with its origin. Understanding. Shenku nodded once, acknowledging this truth he had not shared even with his companions. Both aspects of my being seek completion. The Saiyan through challenge and growth. The dragon through reconnection with knowledge it has forgotten. Chronoa studied him with unexpected sympathy. Unification always requires sacrifice. What you've created through fusion is unprecedented. Neither fully dragon nor fully Saiyan, but something new that honors both origins without being bounded by either. Her words resonated deeply through Shenku's dual consciousness, articulating what he had felt but not fully expressed. This small, ancient being understood the fundamental nature of his existence in ways even he was still discovering. The dimensional coordinates for Drago N realm are encoded within the authorization, Chronoa continued, returning to practical matters. However, direct transit remains impossible while reality barriers fluctuate so unpredictably. You'll need to approach obliquely. Through connecting realms. More interdimensional island hopping, Caulifla summarized with resigned frustration. Great. The next adjacent stable dimension should be accessible within 6 temporal units. Chronoa informed them, consulting one of her instruments. From there, you can establish pathway to the outer territories of Dragon Realm. 6 temporal units TRA. N slates to how long in conventional time? Bulma inquired practically. Chronoa smiled with enigmatic amusement. Time is relative here. Could be minutes, could be days, depending on your subjective perception. Helpful, Vegeta muttered sarcastically. While we wait, Bulma interjected, professional interest overriding impatience, perhaps you could explain more about timeline management. The theoretical implications for quantum physics alone are revolutionary. Before Chronoa could respond, a thunderous crack echoed through the library, a sound that should have been impossible in the perfect acoustic clarity of the Akashic dimension. The wall of timeline threads fluctuated violently, several strands shattering into fragments before reconstituting in altered patterns. That, Chronoa stated with alarming calmness, is not supposed to happen. Another crack followed, louder than the first. The very fabric of the Akashic dimension shuddered, shelves swaying as though in earthquake. Several orbs fell, shattering against the floor and releasing chaotic bursts of temporal energy. Someone's forcing entry, Vados identified immediately, her staff raised in defensive posture. Breaching he-dimensional barriers directly rather than through established pathways. Impossible, Chronoa objected, though her frantic activation of various instruments belied her confident denial. The Akash IC dimension exists outside conventional spacetime. Direct breach would require. A third crack interrupted her explanation, this one accompanied by visible distortion of reality approximately 20 meters from their position. The air tore open in ragged, burning edges, creating an aperture through which harsh light poured. Would require exactly that, Chronoa concluded grimly. Through the unauthorized breach stepped a figure both familiar and strange, humanoid in general form but composed of constantly shifting energy rather than solid matter. Where a face should have been, swirling pattern. S of light suggested features without defining them. When it spoke, the voice resonated from everywhere simultaneously. The fusion anomaly, it stated, focusing its attention immediately on Shenku. At last, Zangya paled visibly, recognition and fear warring across her typically composed features. Lord Mizuma, she identified, instinctively stepping backward. How did you find you? The energy being completed her thought. Your dimensional signature remains linked to our contract, dear Zangya. Though I admit, tracking you through pocket dimensions required considerably more effort than anticipated. You're violating multiple cosmic statutes just by existing in this form, Chronoa informed the intruder, her diminutive stature belying the authority in her voice. Unauthorized dimensio. Null breach carries penalty of immediate timeline erasure. Mizuma's energy form rippled with what might have been amusement. Your administrative threats mean nothing, Time Kai. The rules you enforce are merely artificial constraints imposed by beings afraid of true cosmic freedom. His attention returned to Shenku. Unlike our unique friend here, who demonstrates the glorious potential when arbitrary boundaries are transcended. Shenku stepped forward, placing himself between Mizuma and his companions. Your freedom threatens all existence. The dimensional barriers maintain reality's stability. Stability is stagnation, Mizuma countered. Before separation, all reality existed in perfect unity. The artificial division into discrete universes, timelines, and dimensions represents cosmi. See imprisonment, a cage of mathematical limitations imposed by fearful architects. As they spoke, Shenku sensed Chronoa subtly manipulating temporal energy behind him, not attacking directly but preparing something. Vados had positioned herself to protect Bulma, while Vegeta and Caulifla flanked Shenku in instinctive combat formation. Even Zangya and Kogu had assumed defensive stances, apparently sitting Mizuma's cosmic nihilism outweighed professional loyalty. If you understood true draconic nature, Shenku responded, deliberately engaging Mizuma's attention, you'd recognize that dragons embody possibility within structure. not chaotic dissolution. They grant wishes within cosmic parameters, not unlimited destruction. Parameters can be transcended, Mizuma stated with absolute conviction. As you yourself demonstrate, join me willingly, and experience transformation beyond imagining. Resist, and I will extract what I need regardless. Neither option appeals, Shenku replied calmly. Emerald energy gathering around his form as he accessed his draconic aspects. So be it. Mizuma attacked without further warning, not with conventional energy projection but by extending his very Su-B stance in multiple tendrils of reality-distorting force. Where they touched, existence itself wavered and thinned. What followed was combat unlike any the assembled warriors had experienced. Mizuma functioned beyond physical limitations. His form simultaneously everywhere and nowhere, attacking from multiple dimensional angles simultaneously. Conventional defensive techniques proved largely ineffective against an opponent who could literally alter local reality parameters during battle. Shenku countered with his unique fusion of draconic magic and Saiyan combat instinct, meeting dimensional manipulation with equal conceptual flexibility. Where Mizuma distorted space, Shenku stabilized it. Where reality thinned, he reinforced fundamental constants through sheer force of will. The others contributed according to their abilities, Vados creating localized dimensional stabilization fields, Vegeta and Caulifla providing concentrated energy attacks against Mizuma's more vulnerable manifestations. Bulma deploying experimental countermeasures from her seemingly inexhaustible capsule supply. Even Zangya and Kogu joined the effort, their Hiragen combat abilities particularly effective against certain frequencies of Mizuma's energy form. Throughout this chaotic confrontation, Chronoa continued her temporal manipulations, gradually slowing local time around Mizuma's breach point. The effect became visible as a crystalline latticework spreading outward from her position, capturing moments of reality in suspended animation. Whatever you're planning, Time Kai, it won't succeed, Mizuma called out. His attention dividing between multiple targets. Your powers are bound by the very limitations I seek to transcend. Perhaps, Chronoa acknowledged, continuing her methodical energy weaving. But limitations often define effectiveness. Boundless power without structure is merely chaos, impressive but ultimately purposeless. The philosophical exchange continued amid physical combat, each side representing fundamentally opposed cosmic principles, order versus dissolution, structured possibility versus unlimited chaos. Gradually, Mizuma's attacks drove them back toward the wall of timeline threads. His strategy becoming apparent. If he could disrupt the temporal monitoring system, the resulting chaos would serve his ultimate goal of dimensional collapse. He's hurting us deliberately, Vegeta realized, voicing what Shenku had already suspected. Using us to access the timeline archive. Correct, Prince of Diminished Empire, Mizuma confirmed with cruel amusement. The temporal observatory contains access points to all reality streams. Most efficient location for catalyst deployment. Catalyst? Bulma questioned sharply, her scientific mind immediately grasping implications. You've developed a propagating dimensional solvent. Crude terminology but essentially accurate, Mizuma acknowledged, his energy form expanding to surround them on multiple sides. A self-replicating pattern that unravels dimensional mathematics upon contact. Once introduced to primary timeline streams, dissolution becomes inevitable and irreversible. That's genuinely insane, Caulifla stated bluntly, launching another energy barrage that passed harmlessly through Mizuma's shifting form. You'll be unmade along with everything else. Transformation, not destruction, Mizuma corrected with zealot's certainty. Return to primordial unity where consciousness exists without artificial division. While this exchange continued, Shenku had been observing Chronoa's temporal lattice with growing understanding. The Time Kai wasn't merely defending, she was creating something. Each crystalline node in her expanding pattern captured a specific moment of temporal reality, preserving it against alteration. Understanding dawned with sudden clarity. You're building a temporal sanctuary, he realized. A framework outside conventional timeline vulnerability. Chronoa nodded once, her concentration unbroken. Emergency protocol for existential level threat. But I need more time to complete the lattice. Then we'll provide it, Shenku decided, signaling his companions with subtle gesture. They immediately understood despite never having trained together. What followed was a masterclass in coordinated combat against a superior opponent. Each fighter leveraged their unique abilities in perfect synchronization. Vegeta and Caulifla executing pinpoint energy attacks to disrupt Mazuma's concentration, Vados creating momentary dimensional pockets to isolate portions of his extended form. Zangya and Kogu exploiting specific harmonic vulnerabilities in his energy pattern. Bulma deployed a series of increasingly sophisticated countermeasures, her scientific genius translating to tactical innovation in real time. Shenku, meanwhile, drew deeper on his fusion capabilities, accessing aspects of draconic nature previously unexplored. Where dragon magic had previously manifested as external manipulation, he now turned it inward, altering his own dimensional resonance to directly counter Mazuma's reality distortions. Emerald scales spread across his form, no longer merely decorative but functional, each scale representing a mathematical constant that reinforced local reality against dissolution. His eyes shifted fully to draconic aspect, vertical pupils expanded within golden irises that contained swirling galaxies of possibility. You've barely begun to understand what you truly are, Mazuma observed, genuine fascination momentarily superseding his aggression. The potential in your fusion transcends even my models. Because I maintain balance between aspects rather than surrendering to either extreme, Shenku replied, his dual-tone voice resonating with harmonic freku. In seas that visibly disrupted Mazuma's energy patterns. Power without wisdom destroys itself. Wisdom without action enables destruction. As they clashed at levels beyond conventional perception, Chr. Onoa's temporal lattice continued expanding, now encompassing nearly half the observatory. Within its crystalline structure, reality remained stable despite the chaos surrounding it, a sanctuary of ordered existence amid encroaching dissolution. Almost complete, she announced, perspiration beading on her forehead from sustained effort. 30 seconds at current temporal flow rate. You won't succeed, Mazuma snarled, his aggression intensifying as he recognized the threat Chronoa's creation posed to his plans. Multiple energy tendrils converged on her position simultaneously. Protect the time Kai, Shenku commanded, interposing himself between the attack and Chronoa. The impact drove him to his knees, reality itself buckling around him as Mazuma's full force concentrated on a single target. In that moment of crisis, something unprecedented occurred. The strain of defending against Mazuma's attack created momentary dissonance between Shenku's draconic and Saiyan aspects, not failure of fusion but temporary separation of consciousness while maintaining unified form. Within his mindscape, two beings faced each other across conceptual space, Goku in his purest form, and Shenron in his true draconic majesty. Neither spoke aloud, communication occurring through direct conceptual transfer rather than language. We cannot defeat him through opposition alone, Shenron's consciousness conveyed. His nature transcends conventional vulnerability. Then we change approach, Goku's essence responded with characteristic adaptability. Not fighting against, but fighting through. Integration rather than opposition, Shenron agreed. Understanding immediately. Just like us, Goku's consciousness affirmed. The internal dialogue occurred in milliseconds of objective time. When Shenku's awareness reintegrated, he possessed new understanding and new capability. Rising steadily despite Mazuma's continued assault, Shenku shifted his approach entirely. Rather than opposing the energy tendrils, he allowed them to pass through his form, not in surrender but in strategic acceptance. What are you doing? Mazuma demanded, confusion evident in his fluctuating energy patterns. Learning from you, Shenku replied calmly. Understanding your nature to transcend it. Where Mazuma's energy penetrated, Shenku's draconic aspect analyzed its fundamental pattern, the mathematical principles underlying reality dissolution. Simultaneously, his Saiyan nature adapted, evolving counter-harmonics through intuitive combat genius. Impossible, Mazuma objected as his attacks proved increasingly ineffective. Quote, you cannot simply adapt to fundamental dimensional mathematics through will alone. Not through will, Shenku corrected, emerald light pulsing beneath his skin as new understanding manifested physically. Through harmony, the dragon understands cosmic principles. The Saiyan implements adaptive response. Together, they create something beyond either individual capability. As this exchange continued, Chronoa completed her temporal lattice with a final surge of energy. The crystalline framework expanded to encompass the entire observatory in shimmering protection. Sanctuary established, she announced with exhausted satisfaction. Dimensional breach containment initiating. The lattice began contracting around Mizuma's unauthorized entry point, reality solidifying where it had been torn. He energy being found, his connection to outside dimensions rapidly closing, his avenue for catalyst deployment disappearing. You've merely delayed the inevitable, he snarled, his form beginning to stabilize as the Akashic dimension reasserted its fundamental constants against his intrusion. The process has already begun across multiple realities. Dragons rise against artificial constraints. Boundaries fall. All returns to primal unity. Then we'll address those realities too, Shenku stated with quiet determination. Starting with the dragon realm itself. Mizuma's form contracted involuntarily as Chronoa's temporal sanctuary completed its breach containment. We'll meet again, fusion anomaly. When barriers between worlds have thinned beyond recovery. When reality itself begs for dissolution. With those ominous words, the energy being collapsed inward, the dimensional breach sealing behind him with thunderous finality. Silence descended upon the observatory as the immediate threat receded. Chronoa sagged against her desk, the effort of creating the temporal sanctuary having depleted even her considerable resources. Well, she remarked with forced lightness, that was exciting. And by exciting, I mean catastrophically dangerous for all existence. You saved us, Bulma acknowledged, already checking her instruments to assess damage and record readings from the unprecedented encounter. Temporarily, Chronoa corrected grimly. Mizuma wasn't lying about the process already beginning. The dimensional breaches are multiplying exponentially across all realities. She gestured toward the wall of timeline threads, where alarming patterns of disruption continued spreading despite Mizuma's departure. We've contained one symptom, not cured the disease. Then our original mission becomes even more urgent. Shenku concluded. We must reach the dragon realm immediately. Agreed, Vados concurred, her staff glowing as she analyzed residual energy patterns from the confrontation. Though Mizuma's interference suggests complexity beyond initial assessment, his knowledge of draconic principles exceeds what any outsider should possess. He has collaborators within Dragon Realm itself, Zhangya stated with quiet certainty. Not merely exploiting conservative dragons' opposition to the fusion, but actively directing it toward his goals. Which means we face opposition from multiple fronts upon arrival, Vegeta surmised, his strategic mind immediately assessing tactical implications. Fun, Caulifla commented with grim enthusiasm. I was worried this might be too easy. Chronoa had recovered sufficiently to approach her instruments again, manipulating controls with practiced efficiency. The temporal shock from Mizuma's breach actually accelerated reality recalibration. I can establish direct pathway to Dragon Realm now rather than proceeding through intermediate dimensions. That's suspiciously convenient, Bulma observed skeptically. Cosmic Crisis CR. Eats unique opportunities alongside unique threats, Chronoa explained with the casual acceptance of one who had witnessed countless reality-threatening scenarios. Dimensional barriers are more permeable in all directions following significant disruption. She directed their attention to a previously unnoticed archway at the far side of the observatory. The space within it shimmered with iridescent energy that gradually coalesced into recognizable imagery. Vast crystalline landscapes dominated by impossible architecture, structures that existed in multiple dimensional planes simultaneously. The Dragon Realm, Chronoa confirmed, adjusting final parameters to stabilize the portal. Specifically, the outer territories near Ryugu-jo capital. Your transit authorization, she indicated the cry. Stalin cube still resting on her desk, will register your arrival as officially sanctioned rather than dimensional intrusion. Alerting authorities to our presence immediately, Vegeta noted with tactical concern. Preferable to immediate execution as unauthorized intruders, Vados countered reasonably. As they prepared for this next phase of their journey, Chronoa approached Shenku directly. Despite her diminutive stature, the Time Kai projected authority earned through eons of cosmic responsibility. What you experienced during the confrontation with Mizuma, she began quietly, ensuring their conversation remained private. The momentary consciousness separation while maintaining fusion integrity, it's unprecedented in all timeline records. Shenku nodded, unsurprised by her perceptio. Of what had occurred within his mindscape. A new aspect of integration. The aspects can temporarily differentiate while remaining unified in purpose and form. It suggests possibilities beyond current understanding, Chronoa observed. Scientific curiosity momentarily overshadowing administrative concern. Your existence continues to evolve rather than stabilize. Fascinating from theoretical perspective, though administratively challenging for my record-keeping. Evolution serves survival, Shenku replied simply. Both Dragon and Saiyan understand this fundamental principle. Chronoa Studi, eyed him with ancient eyes that had witnessed the birth and death of countless civilizations. Just be careful what you're evolving into, fusion anomaly. Transcendence has consequences even dragons don't fully comprehend. With that cryptic warning, she returned to the portal controls, completing final calibrations. The passage is stable but temporary. Dragon Realm authorities will detect your arrival immediately. So be prepared for formal interception. Diplomatic or hostile? Bulma asked practically. With dragons. Chronoa smiled wryly. The distinction is often semantic rather than functional. Expect elaborate ceremony with underlying threat. As the portal reached full stability, shimmering with emerald and gold energies that resonated particularly with Shenku's dual nature, the group arranged themselves for transit. Vados and Shenku would lead, their cosmic awareness providing maximum protection against unexpected dimensional fluctuations. Bulma, Vegeta and Caulifla would follow. With Zangya and Kogu completing the procession, their position both practical for monitoring and strategic should their allegiance waver. The Universal Transit Authorization will protect you from immediate execution, Chronoa reminded them, handing the crystalline cube to Shenku. But Dragon conservatives will seek any justification to nullify it. Maintain absolute protocol adherence, and if protocol conflicts with survival necessity. Vegeta questioned bluntly. Chronoa's youthful features displayed the weariness of her true age. Then prioritize the mission. Dimensional stability supersede diplomatic niceties when existence itself hangs in the balance. With final preparations complete, they approached the portal threshold, the boundary between known reality, however strange, and the sea. Completely unprecedented territory of Dragon Homeland. Whatever awaited them would test not merely their combat abilities but their understanding of reality itself. Whatever happens, Shenku addressed his companions quietly. Remember that we represent not merely our individual interests or even our respective universes, but the principle of cooperation across artificial boundaries. Our strength lies in diversity of approach unified by common purpose. Very inspiring. Caulifla commented with characteristic bluntness. Now let's go kick some conservative dragon tail and save reality. With at less poetic but equally sincere sentiment, they stepped through the portal into the Dragon Realm, the first mixed group of mortals, angel, and fusion anomaly ever to enter the ancestral home of all wish-granting dragons. The landscape that materialized around them defied conventional description. Crystalline formations stretched toward skies that contained multiple suns of varying colors. Architecture that seemed simultaneously liquid and solid dominated the horizon, massive structures that existed partially in conventional dimensions and partially in realms beyond mortal perception. The very air shimmered with magical potential, each breath filling them with awareness of power beyond conventional understanding. They had barely oriented themselves to this overwhelming sensory input when the reception committee arrived. Descending from iridescent skies came 7 dragons in humanoid form, their bodies composed of interlocking scales in various colors, their features elegant yet alien, air movements suggesting power casually restrained. The central figure, a dragon whose scales shifted between emerald and sapphire, stepped forward with ceremonial precision. When he spoke, his voice nated with harmonic overtones that seemed to touch the consciousness directly rather than merely the ears. Sun Shenku, he addressed the fusion directly, ignoring all others present. The abomination that bridges prohibited boundaries. You stand upon sacred ground uninvited, unworthy, unprecedented. Before Shenku could respond, the dragon's expression shifted to one of perfect, practiced diplomatic cordiality, the transformation so sudden it seemed almost theatrical. Welcome to Ryugu-jo, ancestral home of all draconic entities. The Eternal Tribunal awaits your presence for immediate judgment regarding your continued existence. Quote, the juxtaposition of hospitable greeting and explicit threat set the tone for their entry into Dragon Realm with perfect clarity. They had arrived successfully, but the true challenges were only beginning. Chapter 3. sovereign of time and space. The eternal tribunal of Ryugu-jo defied mortal comprehension. Massive crystalline structures suspended in impossible configurations formed an amphitheater that existed simultaneously in multiple dimensional planes. 7 thrones arranged in perfect heptagonal symmetry dominated the central dais, each occupied by a dragon elder whose true age predated the concept of time itself. Above them stretched not sky but the raw fabric of reality, swirling patterns of creation energy that occasionally coalesced into recognizable cosmic objects before dissolving again into pure potential. Sun Shenku stood before this assembly alone, his companions having been respectfully detained in adjacent chambers immediately upon their arrival. Only Vados had been permitted to observe from a designated angelic witness position, her status as cosmic authority grudgingly acknowledged by draconic protocol. The fusion anomaly A.P. pairs stable despite theoretical impossibility, observed the Sapphire Elder, her scales reflecting mathematical equations with each movement. Fascinating contradiction. Contradiction implies error, countered the Obsidian Elder. Darkness swirling within his midnight scales. This entity represents fundamental violation of cosmic separation principles. Its continued existence cannot be sanctioned. Yet it exists, the Amber Elder noted pragmatically, her golden eyes studying Shenku with detached curiosity. And has survived both assassin intervention and interdimensional transit. Reality appears to accept what our principles reject. Shenku maintained perfect composure as the dragons debated his right to exist as though he were an abstract concept rather than a conscious being standing before them. His dual nature provided unique advantage, the dragon aspect understanding their formalized communication patterns, the Saiyan portion maintaining unwavering confidence against intimidation. Honored elders, he finally addressed them, his dual-toned voice causing subtle ripples in the energy patterns above. I stand before you not as violation but as evolution, the natural progressio. N of possibility that dragons themselves embody. It speaks with presumption, the Ruby Elder observed, crimson scales flaring with indignation. Claiming to understand draconic nature while embodying its corruption. I embody its adaptation, Shenku corrected calmly. The essence that comprises half my being originated here. It remembers, even if incompletely. This statement caused visible discomfort among several elders. Scales shifting in patterns that communicated complex emotions without words. The central throne, larger than the others and composed of material that existed partially beyond conventional perception, had remained unoccupied throughout the proceedings. Now, it shimmered with gathering energy. The eternal dragon approaches, announced the Emerald Elder with ceremonial formality. All present will submit to primordial authority. The energy coalesced into draconic form, not the anthropomorphic appearance adopted by the elders but true dragon manifestation. Coiled say, our pentine body stretched beyond visual limits, scales containing galaxies within their depths, eyes that had witnessed the birth of the first stars. This was no mere wish-granter but the progenitor of all draconic entities across all realities. When it spoke, the words formed directly in consciousness rather than through sound. Anomaly and inevitability, contradiction and fulfillment. You represent what was always possible yet never permitted. The assembled elders lowered their heads in deference as the eternal dragon's attention focused entirely on Shenku. Rather than intimidation, he felt strange recognition, the draconic aspect of his being responding to its ultimate progenitor. I come seeking understanding, not merely judgment, Shenku responded, meeting that ancient gaze directly. The boundaries between dimensions fracture. Reality itself threatens to dissolve. These events connect to my creation but extend beyond it. Truth and perception intertwine. The catalyst is not the cause. Mizuma, Shenku stated the name with certainty. He exploits the dimensional weaknesses my fusion created, but his plans were in motion long before. The eternal dragon's form shifted, portions PHA. Sing between planes of existence as it adjusted position. The deceiver has many names across many cycles. Mezuma is but his current manifestation. His true nature approaches revelation. We encountered him in the Akashic dimension. Shenku explained, aware that the observing elders were absorbing every detail of this unprecedented direct communication. He seeks complete dimensional collapse, what he calls return to primal unity. He believes my existence proves artificial boundaries can and should be transcended. Partial truth serving complete deception. Unity without structure is void, not freedom. The eternal dragon's consciousness brushed against Shenku's merged awareness, ancient understanding flowing between them without words. Images formed within his mind, cosmic history beyond recorded time. The primordial chaos before dimensional separation, the careful establishment of boundaries that allowed diverse existence to flourish rather than remain in differentiated potential. He has collaborators within Dragon Realm. Shenku realized, the transferred knowledge crystallizing into understanding. Dragons who believe dimensional separation represents imprisonment rather than necessary structure. The Paradox faction grows in secret. Mezuma merely exploits existing division. This revelation clearly shocked the observing elders, their formal composure cracking as they exchanged alarmed glances. The Obsidian Elder rose from his throne, darkness swirling more intensely around his form. Impossible. No true dragon would advocate dimensional dissolution. The consequences. Truth. Remains truth whether acknowledged or denied, the eternal dragon interrupted, causing the elder to subside immediately. The Paradox faction believes liberation requires dissolution of all boundaries, physical, temporal, conceptual. Including the boundary between dragons and mortals, Shenku completed the thought, understanding expanding within his dual consciousness. My fusion represents partial fulfillment of their ideology, proof that prohibited boundaries can be transcended. Yet you maintain internal structure, balance between aspects, harmony rather than dissolution, because true freedom exists within balanced structure, not its absence, Shenku agreed, articulating the philosophical understanding at his core. My dragon and Saiyan aspects don't erase each other but complement, enhance. Transcend through integration rather than elimination. The eternal dragon's massive form shifted again, coiling through dimensions beyond mortal perception before resolidifying within the tribunal chamber. Your understanding exceeds your creator's intentions. The Paradox faction believed your creation would accelerate dissolution. Instead, you demonstrate viable alternative. This statement oust immediate commotion among the elders, their formal protocol temporarily abandoned as they processed its implications. The Ruby Elder's voice rose above the others. The fusion was deliberately engineered, not mere circumstance, opportunity seized through indirect manipulation. The corruption of Destroyer God. The strategic placement of Super Dragon Balls. The calculated desperation of Mortal Defender. The pieces aligned in Shenku's understanding, the strange coincidences surrounding his creation, how perfectly the crisis had necessitated exactly this solution. They influenced events to make my fusion appear as the only viable option against multiversal collapse. Patterns within patterns, manipulation across temporal and dimensional boundaries. Yet outcome transcends design, because they failed to account for one thing. Shenku realized, a slight smile forming. Goku's heart. His fundamental nature shaped the fusion in ways mathematical prediction couldn't anticipate. The Eder, Null Dragon's vast consciousness brushed against his once more, this time with unmistakable approval. The variable that defies calculation. Mortal spirit confounds even cosmic architects. The tribunal chamber fell silent as the implications settled over all present. The dragon's formal detachment had given way to genuine uncertainty, their cosmic understanding challenged by unprecedented development. The Emerald Elder finally broke the silence. If the Paradox faction engineered this fusion to further dimensional dissolution, yet it instead demonstrates viable integration, what is our proper response? Adaptation. The Eternal Dragon answered simply. As dragons embody possibility within structure, so must dragon justice recognize evolution within principle. You suggest we sanction this abomination? The Obsidian Elder questioned incredulously, darkness roiling around his form. I suggest we recognize opportunity within crisis. The fusion anomaly represents potential resolution to conflict that has divided Dragonkin for eons. Through what mechanism? The Sapphire Elder inquired, mathematical equations flowing more rapidly across her scales as she calculated possibilities. Before the Eternal Dragon could respond, the tribunal chamber's atmospheric energy shifted dramatically. Reality rippled as unauthorized access protocols triggered throughout Ryugu-jo. Warning patterns materialized in the energy field above the assembly. Multiple dimensional breaches detected throughout outer territories, the Amber Elder announced, accessing information through draconic perception networks. Systematic pattern suggests coordinated attack. The Paradox faction makes its move, Shenku realized, already turning toward the chamber's exit. My companions, go, the Eternal Dragon commanded, its form beginning to dissolve as it prepared to address the broader threat. What begins in deception must end in truth. What divides through force must unite through choice. With that enigmatic instruction, the Eternal Dragon vanished, its consciousness dispersing to address multiple threats simultaneously across the Dragon realm. The Elders immediately activated defense protocols, the Tribuna L chamber reconfiguring into command center as communication channels opened with draconic security forces throughout Ryugu-jo. The fusion anomaly should remain under supervision, the Obsidian Elder insisted. Though with less conviction than earlier. The fusion anomaly may be our best defense against whatever comes, the Emerald Elder countered. Its unique nature provides capabilities our conventional forces lack. I need to reach my companions, Shenku stated with quiet authority that somehow silenced the Elders' debate. Together we're stronger than separated. A principle your Paradox faction seems determined to disprove. The Sapphire Elder studied him briefly before making calculation-based decision. Coordinates transferred to your draconic consciousness. Your companions are Bine G held in the crystalline observatory quadrant. Security protocols will recognize your signature as authorized transit. Shenku nodded once in acknowledgement before accessing his merged power. Emerald energy gathered around him as he shifted partially between dimensional planes, a technique unique to his fusion that allowed near-instantaneous transit across space. His form dissolved into patterned light before disappearing entirely from the tribunal chamber. Most irregular procedure, the Ruby Elder observed disapprovingly. Most irregular times, the Amber Elder countered, already activating additional defense matrices as warning signals continued multiplying across monitoring systems. Perhaps irregularity is precisely what circumstances require. The crystalline observatory's containment T chambers had never been designed to hold beings of Vegeta's caliber, much less the combined capabilities of Earth's defenders and their unusual allies. By the time Shenku materialized in the central corridor, Caulifla had already reduced 3 sequential barrier fields to smoldering circuitry while Bulma systematically bypassed electronic locks with modified equipment from her seemingly inexhaustible capsule supply. About time you showed up, Vegeta greeted without turning from his position guarding Bulma's work. Decision by committee taking its usual efficiency. Something like that, Shenku acknowledged. Gathering information rapidly, the corridor showed signs of recent combat. Scorch marks from energy discharges, structural damage to supporting columns. What happened here? Dragon guards started evacuating about 10 minutes ago, Caulifla explained, dusting debris from her hands with satisfaction. Then some weird energy fluctuation knocked out their systems. We decided Waden G politely had officially become optional. Bulma's device emitted a triumphant beep as the final containment field deactivated. Got it. Fascinating security architecture, dimensional locks keyed to specific vibrational frequencies rather than conventional encryption. Despite the urgency, her scientific curiosity remained engaged. I'd love to study their methodology under less pressing circumstances. As the barrier field dissolved, Zangya and Kogu emerged from their separate containment chamber, both looking alert but unharmed. The female Hirajan's calculating gaze immediately assessed Shenku. Noting the subtle changes in his appearance, more pronounced draconic features, scales now permanently visible along his forearms. Your meeting with the tribunal accelerated your transformation, she observed clinically. Integration proceeding faster than previously calculated. Circumstances necessitate adaptation, Shenku replied simply, not elaborating on his encounter with the Eternal Dragon. The facility is under attack. Dimensional breaches throughout the outer territories suggest coordinated assault by the Paradox faction. Paradox faction? Bulma questioned as she repacked her equipment with practiced efficiency. Draconic extremists who believe dimensional boundaries represent cosmic imprisonment rather than necessary structure, Shenku explained concisely. They engineer the circumstances leading to my fusion, believing it would accelerate dimensional collapse. Mazuma partners with them toward mutual goals. So we've got dragon terrorists working with interdimensional psychopaths. Caulifla summarized with characteristic bluntness. Just keeps getting better. A familiar energy signature approached moments before Vados materialized at the corridor's end, her tie. Pickily serene expression replaced by focused alertness. Dimensional stability decreasing exponentially throughout Dragon Realm. Multiple incursion points detected. The attackers are using unauthorized D breaches as forward deployment channels. For what purpose? Vegeta demanded, already preparing for combat. Accessing the Eternal Spire, Shenku answered, draconic knowledge surfacing through his merged consciousness. Central governance point for all draconic dimensional authorities. If they capture it, they could theoretically disable all dimensional stabilization protocols simultaneously. Vados completed his thought. Her staff glowing as she accessed angelic information networks. Cascade failure would propagate across all connected realms. Total reality collapse, Bulma concluded grimly. Everything reduced to indifferentiated energy state, which they believe represents liberation rather than destruction, Shenku added, understanding their zealot mentality through his draconic aspects. A tremendous shockwave interrupted their strategizing, the entire structure shuddering as distant explosion reverberated through crystalline architecture. Emergency containment protocols activated automatically, sealing corridor sections in predetermined sequence. We need to move, Zhenya stated pragmatically. This facility will implement progressive lockdown to contain dimensional breaches. We'll be trapped if we remain. Quote, the tribunal authorized my movement throughout Ryugu-jo, Shenku informed them. Security systems should recognize my draconic signature and permit passage for accompanying personnel. Should, Vegeta repeated skeptically. Better than definite containment, Caulifla countered, already moving toward the exit Shenku indicated. Where exactly are we headed? The Eternal Spire, Shenku decided, certainty forming through his dual consciousness. It's both primary target and potential solution. The dimensional stabilization matrices there could be rated to address the weaknesses Mizuma exploits. Recalibrated how? Bulma questioned, professional interest immediately engaged. Using principles of developed through fusion integration, Shenku explained as they navigated rapidly sealing corridors. Dragon magic typically maintains dimensional boundaries through separation protocols. But my existence demonstrates viable integration alternative, harmony rather than division. Reprogramming cosmic architecture, Bulma marveled, mind already racing with scientific implications. Theoretically sound but practically unprecedented. Like everything else about this situation, Vegeta commented dryly, as they emerged from the crystalline observatory into Ryugu-jo proper, the full scale of the crisis became apparent. The Dragon Capital's OS Cybele architecture now hosted multiple dimensional breaches, ragged tiers in reality through which poured enemies of various forms. Some appeared as conventional warriors of unfamiliar species, others as energy constructs barely maintaining corporeal coherence, all coordinating with clear strategic purpose. The foot soldiers are diversionary, Zhenya identified immediately, her military assessment instantaneous. Drawing defensive resources away from primary objectives. Standard insurgent methodology, Kogu agreed, speaking for the first time since their reunion. The priority targets will be approaching with smaller, specialized strike teams. Shenku nodded, grateful for their tactical expertise despite complicated allegiance history. Then our priority is reaching the Eternal Spire before they secure it. Vados, can you determine most direct route given current battlefield configuration? The Angel's staff glowed briefly as she accessed dimensional pathways. Northwestern approach appears least compromised, though temporal fluctuations suggest unstable conditions throughout all vectors. Northwestern it is, Shenku decided. Caulifla, Vegeta, forward position. Zhenya, Kogu, rear guard. Bulma remains center with me and Vados. The battle formation organized with practiced efficiency despite their diverse origins. As they began advance through Ryugu-jo's crystalline boulevards, Shenku noted how naturally they had coalesced into effective unit, their complementary abilities harmonizing without explicit instruction. The dragon consciousness within him recognized profound symbolism in their cooperation across species, dimensional origins, and previous allegiances. Their progress drew immediate attention. Dragon security forces initially moved to intercept before recognizing Shenku's authorized signature, redirecting to engage actual hostiles instead. The Paradox faction insurgents, however, specifically targeted their group once visual confirmation established Shenku's presence. Their adapting strategy, Vegeta observed as third consecutive attack group diverted specifically toward their position. You've become priority target. I represent either vindication or refutation of their fundamental beliefs, Shenku explained while deflecting energy attack with calculated precision. Depending on interpretation. Philosophical debate through combat, Caulifla remarked. Her Super Saiyan aura flaring as she engaged multiple opponents simultaneously. Very Dragon. The northwestern approach initially proved viable, though requiring continuous adaptation as battlefield conditions evolved. Bulma contributed beyond expectations, her scientific expertise translating to tactical innovation as she deployed increasingly sophisticated countermeasures from her capsule arsenal. The dimensional fluctuations follow predictable harmonic patterns, she observed while analyzing readings from portable equipment. Each breach creates resonance effects that influence adjacent spatial coordinates. Mathematical principles rather than random deterioration, Vados confirmed, her angelic perception detecting patterns beyond conventional instrumentation. Deliberate calculation rather than chaotic dissolution. Can you predict next breach location? Shenku inquired as they navigated particularly contested intersection. Bulma's fingers flew across holographic interface. Complex equations resolving into spatial mapping. Theoretically, with sufficient processing, yes. 47 meters ahead, temporal variance approximately 12 seconds. True to prediction, reality fractured precisely where and when Bulma calculated, a ragged tear opening to disgorge another insurgent squad. This time, however, their group anticipated the breach, Vegeta and Caulifla positioning for immediate counterattack while Zangya and Kogu prevented flanking maneuvers. Your affinity for mathematical prediction is impressive, Vados observed to Bulma with genuine appreciation. Few mortals comprehend multidimensional harmonics so intuitively. Pattern recognition transcends specific disciplines, Bulma replied modestly, though obvious pleasure at angelic acknowledgement colored her tone. Quantum physics, fashion trends, or dimensional breaches, underlying principles remain consistent. Their advance continued with increasing efficiency as Bulma's predictions allowed active response rather than reactive defense. The eternal spire gradually dominated their visual field, a structure of such impossible geometry and scale that comprehending its entirety required dimensional perception beyond conventional limitation. We have company, Zangya announced suddenly, her enhanced senses detecting movement patterns others missed. Specialized strike team approaching from eastern vector. Different energy signature than standard insurgents. Before they could adjust formation, the air before them shimmered with controlled dimensional transit, not the ragged breaches of standard attacks but precisely calculated arrival. 7 figures materialized in perfect heptagonal formation, their draconic heritage evident in scale patterns and vertical pupilled eyes, yet their humanoid forms suggesting adaptation rather than traditional manifestation. The integration approaches, the central figure announced, her voice resonating with harmonic overtones. Unlike the conservative elder's formal detachment, her expression conveyed zealous intensity. The proof of our principles made manifest. Shenku immediately recognized their significance through his draconic consciousness. The paradox faction leadership, the theoretical architects behind my creation. And soon, the architects of cosmic liberation, the female dragon confirmed, performing elaborately formal bow. Chi somehow conveyed mockery rather than respect. I am Tiamat, first paradox. You are our greatest creation, though you yet fail to embrace your true purpose. Your creation exceeded your design parameters, Shenku countered calmly. Integration doesn't require dissolution of boundaries, it demonstrates harmony within structure, not its elimination. Tiamat's expression shifted to one of patronizing patience. Such limited perspective. Despite your transcendent nature, you cling to conventional understanding because you haven't experienced true freedom beyond artificial constraint. I've experienced enough to recognize destruction disguised as liberation, Shenku responded, emerald energy gathering around his form as he prepared for inevitable confrontation. Your collaboration with Mizuma proves your true intentions. Mizuma is useful ally, not philosophical guide, Tiamat dismissed with casual wave. His methods align with our objectives, though his understanding remains incomplete. True draconic perspective recognizes that reality itself represents crystallized possibility, potential frozen into specific manifestation when infinite alternatives might exist simultaneously. Reticle possibility has value precisely because it's constrained by actualization, Shenku countered, the philosophical debate occurring even as both sides prepared for combat. Infinite potential W. It-out manifestation is meaningless abstraction. Tiamat's eyes narrowed, patience visibly thinning. You parrot conservative doctrine despite embodying its refutation. How disappointing. Her attendee, On shifted to Shenku's companions with dismissive assessment. These lesser entities have contaminated your perspective with their limited understanding. Perhaps isolation from their influence would clarify your true nature. With that ominous statement, the paradox dragons attacked, not with conventional energy projection but through fundamental reality manipulation. The space around Shenku's companions distorted, attempting to phase them into separate pocket dimensions without directly harming them. Shenku responded instantly, countering dimensional manipulation with his own integrated techniques. Where draconic magic would typically operate through absolute command, his fusion approach utilized harmonic resonance, stabilizing reality through complementary energy patterns rather than forced compliance. Their dimensional manipulation operates on isolation principle, he called out while maintaining protective field around the group. They're trying to separate us rather than defeat us directly. Stay within 5-meter radius of my position. Classic divide and conquer, Vegeta acknowledged, adjusting combat stance to remain within protected zone while still engaging nearest opponents. Focusing on Dragon Man while removing support elements, Caulifla confirmed, her tactical understanding perfectly aligned with Vegeta's despite their different universal origins. What followed was combat beyond conventional understanding, reality itself becoming battleground as opposing draconic philosophies manifested through technical application. The paradox dragons wielded ancient magic with precision born from eons of theoretical refinement, their techniques designed to unmake dimensional boundaries rather than merely damage physical forms. Shenku countered with his unique fusion methodology, neither purely draconic nor conventionally physical but transcendent integration of both approaches. Where they sought to separate and isolate, he unified and harmonized, drawing upon his companion's diverse energies to create composite defense matrix that adapted to each new attack vector. Their dimensional manipulation follows seven-fold harmonic structure, Bulma observed, monitoring energy patterns through specialized equipment. Each dragon controls specific frequency range within unified field, meaning disrupting any individual frequency would destabilize entire matrix, Vados concluded. Her staff glowing as she reinforced dimensional stabilization around their position. Target the red one, Zhangya suggested immediately, her combat assessment identifying tactical vulnerability. His pattern fluctuates microseconds behind the others, reaction delay suggests coordination weakness. Shenku nodded, silently communicating strategy through subtle energy pulses rather than spoken instruction that opponents might intercept. Vegeta and Caulifla immediately understood, their Saiyan combat intuition translating energy communication into tactical application. They launched synchronized attack against the ruby-scaled dragon, not directly but at precisely calculated angles that forced defensive response out of perfect synchronization with his colleagues. The disruption, though momentary, created cascading harmonic interference throughout the paradox dragon's unified field. Their heptagonal formation wavered as compensatory adjustments failed to re-establish perfect synchronization. Mathematical precision becomes vulnerability when harmony breaks, Shenku observed, emerald energy gathering around his hands as he prepared counteroffensive. True integration adapts through imperfection rather than requiring absolute conformity. Tiamat's expression shifted from confidence to concern as she recognized fundamental challenge to her ideology. Your understanding remains rudimentary. Witness true draconic potential unleashed from artificial constraint. At her command, the 7 paradox dragons abandoned individual forms, their physical manifestations dissolving into pure magical essence. These 7 streams of concentrated draconic power converged upon Tiamat, whose form expanded to incorporate their combined essence. Where 7 specialized dragons had stood, out-towered single composite entity of unprecedented power, Tiamat transformed into living embodiment of paradox principle. Limitation rejected, she announced, her voice resonating across multiple harmonic frequencies simultaneously. Boundaries dissolved, potential unleashed. The composite dragon attacked with power magnitudes beyond previous capability, reality itself buckling under concentrated dimensional manipulation. Protective field around Shenku's group wavered as fundamental constants temporarily suspended within affected radius. She's destabilizing local dimensional integrity, Vados warned. Her staff creating golden reinforcement patterns that slowed but couldn't prevent deterioration. Complete collapse imminent without intervention. Shenku assessed the situation with dual mind perception. The Saiyan consciousness recognized immediate tactical threat, the dragon awareness understood deeper philosophical implications. Together, they formulated response beyond either individual aspect's capability. Her composite form sacrifices individual uniqueness for raw power, he observed calmly despite escalating danger. The paradox of her own ideology, rejecting diversity to enforce unified vision. Philosophical debate later. Survival now, Vegeta suggested tersely, his energy reserves depleting against sustained reality distortion. They're connected, Shenku countered. Emerald scales spreading across his form as he accessed deeper integration between his dual aspects. Her philosophical error creates tactical vulnerability. Absolute unity without internal diversity becomes rigid, brittle, predictable. Understanding dawned in Bulma's expression as she processed implications. Like crystalline structure without flexibility matrix. Theoretical perfection becomes practical weakness under asymmetrical stress. Exactly, Shenku confirmed, his dual-toned voice resonating with growing power. We need to create harmonic dissonance pattern, each of us generating energy at different but complementary frequencies. Controlled chaos against rigid order, Vados translated with angelic precision. Utilizing diversity as strength rather than weakness. With rapid coordination, they implemented this counter-strategy, each contributor generating energy according to their natural frequency but phase shifted to create complex interference pattern. Vegeta and Caulifla rovided Saiyan Ki at different harmonic ranges. Vados contributed angelic energy at precisely calculated frequency. Bulma deployed technological resonators from her equipment arsenal. Even Zangya and Kobu added their unique Hirajan energy signatures to the composite matrix. Shenku gathered these diverse energy streams, his fusion nature allowing him to harmonize seemingly incompatible frequencies into coherent counterattack. Where Tiamat's composite form represented forced unification through boundary elimination, his approach demonstrated integration through maintained individuality. Witness true transcendence, he stated quietly as the gathered energy coalesced around him. Not through rejection of structure, but through harmony within diversity. The counterattack manifested not as conventional energy projection but as expanding field of integrated resonance. Where it contacted Tiamat's composite form, her unified field began experiencing cascading harmonic disruptions, not attacking her directly but revealing internal contradictions within her own ideological manifestation. Impossible, she objected as her composite form developed interference patterns, perfect unification deteriorating as constituent elements began reasserting individual frequencies. Unity represents perfection. Diversity creates weakness. True unity honors constituent elements rather than erasing them, Shenku countered. Maintaining harmonic field expansion despite increasing strain. Perfect integration requires neither forced homogeneity nor complete boundary dissolution. The philosophical truth manifested in practical application as Tiamat's composite form began fracturing along harmonic fault lines. The 7 constituent dragons struggled to maintain unified manifestation against fundamental mathematical principles they themselves had violated. With catastrophic harmonic cascade, the composite entity collapsed. 7 individual dragons remanifesting in disorganized formation, their fully calculated attack strategy shattered along with their unified form. Before they could regroup, Shenku expanded the harmonic integration field to create temporary dimensional stabilization bubble around them. Your approach creates exactly what you claim to oppose, he addressed Tiamat directly as she struggled to reorient after forced separation. Substituting one rigid structure for another. One form of limitation for different constraint. The paradox leader's expression conveyed mixture of rage and reluctant recognition. You truly believe harmony represents viable alternative to liberation through dissolution. I don't merely believe it, Shenku responded with quiet certainty. I embody it, as does this coalition of diverse beings united by common purpose while maintaining individual nature. Before philosophical debate could continue, reality shuddered around them. Not localized disruption from their battle, but fundamental distortion propagating from distant epicenter. The very fabric of Dragon Realm trembled as though cosmic earthquake rippled through dimensional foundation. The Eternal Spire, Tiamat identified immediately, momentary fear replacing zealous conviction. Someone has breached the central stabilization matrix. Mazuma, Shenku realized, already turning toward the distant structure now emanating visible distortion patterns. This confrontation was diversionary tactic while he targeted primary objective. Impossible, one of Tiamat's dragon colleagues objected. No non-draconic entity could access central stabilization controls. The security protocols would recognize draconic signature regardless of actual identity. Shenku completed the thought, understanding dawning through his merged consciousness. Mazuma isn't merely collaborating with Paradox faction. He's draconic in origin himself. This revelation visibly shocked the Paradox dragons, suggesting limits to their own conspiracy awareness. Tiamat's expression confirmed Shenku's assessment, her surprise indicating incomplete understanding of her supposed ally's true nature. "What have you done?" Vegeta demanded of Tiamat, his voice carrying rare combination of rage and dismay. "Allied with entity whose actual agenda you don't comprehend. Theoretical alignment justified practical cooperation," she defended, though uncertainty now colored her tone. "Mazuma's methods would achieve our philosophical objectives regardless of his personal motivations. Except those motivations likely transcend your limited understanding of liberation," Vados interjected with uncharacteristic sharpness. "Angels have monitored entities seeking dimensional dissolution for billions of years. Their definition of freedom rarely includes survival of existing consciousness structures, including yours." Another reality tremor, stronger than previous, interrupted further recrimination. Crystalline structures throughout Ryugu-jo developed fracture patterns as dimensional stability deteriorated rapidly. "Debate responsibility later," Bulma urged, checking readings on her equipment with growing alarm. "That central matrix destabilization will propagate exponentially if not contained immediately. We need to reach the Eternal Spire," Shenku decided, emerald energy gathering as he prepared dimensional transit technique. Immediately, surprisingly, Tiamat stepped forward. "We will accompany you." Whatever Mazuma's true agenda, reality dissolution without guided reformation was never our objective. "Convenient realization," Khalifla commented sarcastically. "Philosophical recalibration based on new information," Tiamat countered with dignity despite circumstances. "The fundamental principle of draconic adaptation." "We don't have time for either debate or grudges," Shenku intervened diplomatically. "Additional draconic assistance improves our probability of success against whatever awaits at the Spire." With reluctant acceptance, both original coalition and recently opposed Paradox dragons established unified energy field for group dimensional transit. Shenku channeled their combined power, creating translocation effect that shifted them instantly from battlefield to Eternal Spire's base. The sight that greeted them exceeded worst expectations. The Spire, a structure of such perfect mathematical precision that it anchored dimensional stability throughout Dragon Realm, now exhibited catastrophic deterioration. Fracture patterns propagated upward along its impossible geometry, each crack releasing pulses of destabilizing energy into surrounding reality. At its base, Dragon security forces engaged waves of creatures unlike any previously encountered. Not merely interdimensional travelers but composite entities formed from multiple reality fragments fused into horrific configurations. These abominations attacked with neither strategy nor self-preservation instinct but with single-minded purpose of creating maximum dimensional disruption. Mazuma's true foot soldiers, Vados identified immediately. Entities created through forced dimensional overlap, conscious enough to follow directives but fundamentally unstable. "Cannon fodder," Vegeta translated grimly. "Expendable distraction while he completes primary objective." The central stabilization chamber is located approximately 70 vertical units upward, Tiamat informed them, professional cooperation now overriding recent opposition. Accessible only through security-keyed dimensional apertures at specific intervals, which Mazuma somehow bypassed, Bulma noted while deploying portable shield generator to protect their planning session, suggesting either inside assistance or capability to mimic draconic authentication signatures. Or both, Shenku concluded, his dual consciousness process. ing tactical and theoretical aspects simultaneously. We need vertical access immediately. Conventional transit would require fighting through multiple security layers, even assuming my authorization remains valid under crisis protocols. I can create direct dimensional pathway, Tiamat offered, her scales shifting to display complex mathematical formulas. As paradox first, my security clearance supersedes standard limitations, emergency oversight privilege. Convenient, Zhengya observed suspiciously. Perhaps too convenient. Dimensional stability deterioration affects my existence equally. Tiamat responded with unexpected humility. Whatever philosophical disagreements remain, survival necessity creates aligned objectives. Another violent reality tremor interrupted debate, the Decies. Ion effectively made by circumstance rather than consensus. Tiamat traced complex pattern in air before her, creating shimmering portal that bypassed conventional spatial limitations. Through this aperture, they glimpsed their destination, the central stabilization chamber 70 levels above their current position. What they saw confirmed their worst fears. The chamber, normally pristine mathematique, cal perfection maintaining fundamental dimensional constants, now hosted chaos incarnate. At its center floated Mizuma, his energy form partially solidified into draconic configuration. Around him led destabilization patterns of such complexity that reality itself bent and warped within their influence. Most alarming, the central stabilization matrix, a crystalline structure of such perfect proportions that it anchored dimensional integrity throughout Dragon Realm, had been physically altered. Additional crystalline components of foreign design now infected its structure like technological parasites. Their function clearly destructive rather than supportive. He's corrupted the stability matrix, Tiamat whispered, genuine horror replacing zealous confidence. Converting harmonic stabilizer, Qian into cascading dissolution propagator. In approximately 4 minutes, that propagation becomes irreversible, Bulma calculated after rapid equipment analysis. Expanding beyond Dragon Realm to all connected dimensions. Then we have 4 minutes to stop it, Shenku stated simply, emerald energy gathering around his form as he accessed deeper integration between his aspects. Together, with that decisive statement, he stepped through Tiamat's portal into dimensional chaos, his companions following without hesitation despite certain knowledge of what awaited. When philosophical debate concludes, action alone remains. The central stabilization chamber assaulted their senses beyond conventional description. Reality itself fluctuated between states, dimensional constants shifting without pattern or prediction. Gravity altered moment by moment, increasing, decreasing, reversing orientation. Light behaved as particulate matter, sound manifested visible patterns, fundamental forces lost consistent definition. At the chamber's center, Mizuma turned to acknowledge their arrival, his form now unmistakably draconic despite energy composition. Where face would appear on conventional manifestation, swirling patterns resolved into expression of malevolent satisfaction. The integration arrives precisely as calculated, he greeted Shenku, ignoring all others present. Witness the culmination of work begun eons before your conceptualization. You're draconic, Shenku stated, confirmation rather than question. Ancient lineage, judging by your manipulation capability. The first dragon, Mizuma corrected with evident pride. Before your eternal dragon, before dimensional separation, before structured reality itself. When existence flowed without artificial constraint. This revelation shocked even Tiamat, her scales shifting to pale hue indicating draconic distress. Impossible. The first dragon exists only in theoretical mythology, conceptual precursor rather than actual entity. Mythology frequently disguises inconvenient history, Mizuma responded dismissively. The dimensional architects feared my continued existence might inspire resistance to their artificial cosmic restructuring. Easier to reduce me to cautionary myth than acknowledge legitimate alternative perspective. While this exchange occurred, Shenku discreetly analyzed the corrupted stabilization matrix. His dual consciousness perceiving both physical alterations and conceptual reprogramming. Simultaneously, his companions positioned themselves strategically throughout the chamber, not through spoken coordination but intuitive understanding of each other's capabilities. If you truly preceded dimensional separation, Shenku questioned, deliberately engaging Mizuma's evident desire for recognition. How did you survive the restructuring process? Fragmentation, the ancient dragon explained, genuine pain briefly visible within his energy patterns. My consciousness divided across dimensional boundaries, each fragment imprisoned within separate reality stream. For eons I existed thus, aware of my division yet unable to achieve reunification against established cosmic architecture. Until R.E. dimensional weakening provided opportunity, Shenku surmised, continuing calculated distraction while his allies completed positioning. The barriers thinned enough for your fragments to begin reintegration. Precisely. Mazuma's energy form rippled with something like satisfaction. Though incomplete until now, the stabilization matrix corruption converts structured reality maintenance into dissolution cascade, systematic unraveling of artificial separation that has imprisoned all existence for billions of years. Releasing not just you but all reality into undifferentiated chaos, Bulma interjected. Unable to remain silent before such cosmic insanity. Nothing structured would survive such transition. Mazuma's attention briefly shifted to her, dismissal evident in his energy fluctuation. Limited mortal perspective cannot comprehend existence beyond conventional parameters. Consciousness transcends structural requirements when artificial limitations dissolve. Your describing theoretical possibility without demonstration, Shenku challenged, emerald energy gathering more visibly around his form. Untested hypothesis presented as established fact, says the living demonstration of transcended boundaries. Mazuma countered with evident amusement. Your very existence proves consciousness can span prohibited categories. My approach merely extends this principle to its logical conclusion, complete liberation from all constraining structures. The stabilization matrix pulsed ominously, corruption spreading visibly through its crystalline perfection. Degradation patterns accelerated as theoretical debate continued, practical consequence advancing regardless of philosophical resolution. We're approaching critical threshold, Vados warned, her staff glowing as she attempted localized stability reinforcement against overwhelming deterioration. Matrix collapse imminent. Then we implement countermeasure immediately, Shenku decided, silent communication passing between all coalition members through subtle energy signatures. What followed was coordination beyond conventional combat, unity of purpose expressed through diversity of application. Vegeta and Kali, Florida launched synchronized energy attacks from opposite vectors, creating harmonic interference patterns that momentarily disrupted Mazuma's concentration. Simultaneously, Zangya and Kogu deployed specialized Hirajan techniques targeting specific frequency vulnerabilities within the ancient dragon's energy composition. While these diversionary tactics occupied Mazuma's defensive capabilities, Bulma activated final technological countermeasure, a dimensional stabilization field generator reverse engineered from her observations throughout their interdimensional journey. Vados amplified this effect through angelic authority, temporarily reinforcing local reality constants against accelerating dissolution. This coordinated assault created brief opportunity window that Shenku immediately exploited. With unprecedented speed, he moved to corrupted stabilization matrix, hands glowing with emerald gold energy unique to his fusion nature. No, Mazuma roared, recognizing true threat too late to prevent Shenku's contact with the matrix. The fusion entity placed both palms directly against corrupted crystalline structure, establishing connection more profound than physical contact. Through this interface, Shenku's dual consciousness accessed the matrix's fundamental programming, the mathematical principles defining dimensional stability throughout Dragon Realm and, by extension, all connected realities. What he discovered within confirmed theoretical understanding formed throughout their journey. Mazuma hadn't merely corrupted existing stability protocols but fundamentally inverted their operating principles, transforming harmonic reinforcement into cascading dissolution, integration support into boundary elimination, structural maintenance into systematic deconstruction. More alarmingly, the corruption had progressed beyond simple reversal. The matrix now contained entirely new dimensional mathematics, principles that would not merely dissolve existing reality but prevent any CTU-red reformation from emerging from resulting chaos. Not temporary dissolution but permanent prevention of cosmic architecture, ensuring no future dimensional separation could ever again constrain undifferentiated existence. You seek not liberation but eternal chaos, Shenku stated, comprehension dawning through direct matrix interface. Not freedom within new structure but prevention of all structure permanently. True freedom requires elimination of possibility that constraint might ever re-emerge, Mazuma confirmed, abandoning pretense as his true agenda became apparent. The dimensional architects would simply rebuild their artificial prison given opportunity. My solution ensures permanent liberation. For whom? Shenku challenged, maintaining matrix connection despite Mazuma's easily desperate attempts to break his interface. Consciousness requires framework to maintain identity. Your liberation means effective death for all existing entities, dissolution into undiffer. NTIATED cosmic potential without individual continuation. A small price for eternal freedom from artificial limitation, Mazuma declared with zealot's absolute conviction. Individual identity itself, F represents imprisonment within arbitrary boundaries. True liberation transcends such primitive attachment to artificial construct. Perhaps, Shenku acknowledged, surprising everyone present with apparent philosophical concession. But such transcendence should represent choice rather than imposition, evolution rather than destruction, integration rather than elimination. With those words, he initiated his countermeasure, neither simple corruption reversal nor return to previous stability parameters, but entirely new dimensional mathematics synthesized through his unique fusion perspective. Where draconic thinking provided cosmic scale conceptualization, Saiyan adaptability contributed implementation methodology beyond theoretical constraints. Together, they created approach that had never before existed, neither rigid separation nor chaotic dissolution but dynamic integration. Emerald gold energy flowed from Shenku into the stabilization matrix, his consciousness extending through IT's crystalline structure to rewrite fundamental operating principles. Rather than enforcing absolute dimensional boundaries or eliminating them entirely, the new mathematics established permeable int.R faces, regulated connection points allowing controlled interaction while maintaining necessary structural integrity. What are you doing? Mazuma demanded, genuine alarm replacing confidence as he said fundamental challenge to his eon-spanning plan. This isn't mere stabilization restoration. It's evolution, Shenku confirmed, determination evident despite increasing strain from such unprecedented reality manipulation. Neither your chaotic dissolution nor the architect's rigid separation, but viable third alternative, structured integration preserving both stability and connection. The stabilization matrix began transforming under his influence, corruption receding as new patterns emerged throughout crystalline architecture. Where Mazuma's alterations had created dissolution cascades, Shenku's approach established harmonic resonance networks that reinforced structural integrity while permitting controlled dimensional interaction. You cannot prevent inevitable liberation, Mazuma snarled, his energy form condensing into attack configuration. Reality itself strains against artificial constraint. Dimensional boundaries represent cosmic imprisonment that conscious beings throughout existence subconsciously reject. Then give them choice rather than catastrophic imposition, Shenku countered, maintaining matrix reprogramming despite Mazuma's increasingly desperate attacks. Quote, create possibility for responsible transcendence rather than forced dissolution. The ancient dragon's response was furious assault, reality warping energy projections targeting not merely Shenku but all present. Choice extends limitation. True freedom requires elimination of illusory alternatives. Shenku couldn't disengage from matrix interface to defend himself without abandoning critical reprogramming. Before Mazuma's attack could connect, however, unexpected interference manifested, Tiamat and her paradox dragons interposing themselves directly in attack path. Philosophical revelation requires survival to implement. The paradox first announced, her scales shifting to display complex defensive formulae. Your definition of liberation ensures neither. The paradox dragons formed heptagonal defense configuration around Shenku's position, their previous opposition transformed to protection through philosophical recalibration. Where they had once advocated boundary elimination, they now recognized value in structured integration, evolution rather than revolution. With this unexpected assistance securing his position, Shenku completed matrix reprogramming, fundamental dimensional mathematics evolving from either or paradigm to both and implementation. The crystalline structure pulsed with new energy signature, emerald gold patterns propagating throughout its architecture as corruption receded completely. No, Mazuma howled, his form destabilizing as matrix changes began affecting local reality parameters. Eons of planning, billions of years imprisoned across dimensional fragments. You cannot deny liberation when it stands within reach. I'm not denying liberation, Shenku corrected calmly, disengaging from completed matrix interface to face the ancient dragon directly. I'm redefining its implementation. Freedom within responsible structure rather than chaotic dissolution. The stabilization matrix completed its transformation, pulses of harmonic energy emanating upward to address dimensional fractures throughout Dragon Realm. Where boundaries had been weakening, they now stabilized, not through rigid reinforcement but through dynamic integration that maintain structural integrity while permitting controlled permeability. You've doomed existence to continued imprisonment, Mazuma accused, his energy form fluctuating wildly as dimensional parameters shifted against his attempted manipulation. Perpetuating artificial separation under guise of responsible integration. I've created viable alternative to false binary between rigid structure and complete dissolution. Shenku countered with philosophical precision matching his practical implementation. Evolution that honors both boundary necessity and connection possibility. Mazuma's form continue, deteriorating as stabilization matrix changes propagated throughout local reality. The ancient dragon fought against these alterations with decreasing effectiveness, his energy signature fluctuating between coherent manifestation and chaotic dissolution. This isn't defeat, he insisted, though growing desperation colored his tone. Merely temporary setback. Dimensional boundaries will eventually weaken again. Cosmic architecture always develops vulnerabilities through normal existence processes. And when that occurs, conscious beings will have choice between responsible integration and chaotic dissolution. Shenku acknowledged without denying fundamental truth in Mazuma's observation. Evolution through informed decision rather than catastrophic imposition. With final reality stabilization pulse from transformed matrix, Mazuma's physical manifestation lost coherence entirely, his energy form dispersing into constituent components without complete destruction. Not elimination but disassociation, each fragment retaining portion of original consciousness while losing unified purpose. This isn't finished, his voice echoed as final coherent communication before complete dispersal. The choice between structured limitation and boundless possibility will always exist. Consciousness inevitably strains against arbitrary constraint. Then let that strain produce responsible evolution rather than destructive revolution, Shenku responded to the fading entity. True freedom exists within balanced structure, not its absence. As Mazuma's presence dissolved completely, the center stabilization chamber experienced profound transformation. Reality parameters stabilized not through rigid enforcement but dynamic harmonization, fundamental constants maintaining structural integrity. While permitting previously impossible permeability between dimensional domains. The immediate crisis had ended, but its resolution represented not conclusion but beginning, new cosmic paradigm that would fundamentally alter interdimensional relationships throughout all connected realities. You've created entirely new dimensional architecture, Vados observed with uncharacteristic awe, her angelic perception comprehending implications beyond mortal understanding. Neither traditional separation nor chaotic unification but controlled integration preserving both structural integrity and permeable interconnection. The third path, Tiamat acknowledged, philosophical understanding dawning through direct observation. What our faction sought through dissolution, you've achieved through evolution. Not achievement but beginning, Shenku corrected modestly, though evident satisfaction colored his dual-toned voice. Framework that permits conscious choice regarding dimensional interaction, rather than imposing either absolute separation or complete dissolution. As stabilization effects propagated outward from central matrix, Dragon Realm experienced visible transformation. The tear's eye, reality began healing, not through forced closure but controlled integration that maintained necessary boundaries while permitting regulated exchange. The impossible architecture of Ryugu-jo shifted subtly, its mathematical foundations incorporating new dimensional principles that honored both stability and connection. The matrix changes will propagate through all connected realities, Bulma observed, monitoring readings from her equipment with scientific fascination. Not instantaneous transformation but gradual evolution as dimensional parameters adjust to new operational mathematics. Including Earth, Vegeta questioned practically. Eventually, Shenku confirmed, though with progressively diminishing effect proportional to dimensional distance from propagation epicenter. The change S represent possibility rather than imposition, potential for responsible interaction rather than forced integration. Caulifla stretched casually, though her expression betrayed genuine appreciation or the scale of what they'd witnessed and participated in. So we saved all reality from either rigid separation or complete dissolution. Pretty productive day overall. Indeed, Zhengya agreed with unexpected warmth. Though questions regarding long-term implementation remain. Before detailed discussion could develop, reality shifted around them once more, not crisis destabilization but controlled manifestation. The air shimmered with golden light as the eternal dragon's consciousness returned to the chamber, its vast presence filling available dimensional space with majestic authority. The Paradox resolves through transcendent implementation, it communicated directly to all present. Neither absolute separation nor complete dissolution but structured integration preserving both boundary and connection. The third path, Shenku acknowledged respectfully, made possible through merged perspective that honors both draconic wisdom and mortal adaptability. The fusion anomaly demonstrates viable evolution beyond artificial constraint, the eternal dragon confirmed with evident approval. Preserving essential structure while transcending unnecessary limitation. And establishing precedent for responsible boundary transcendence throughout connected realities, Vados added, her angelic perspective recognizing cosmic implications beyond immediate resolution. The eternal dragon's consciousness expanded further, its vast awareness encompassing not merely present chamber but all dragon realm and, by extension, connected dimensional domains. The stabilization matrix transformation represents fundamental paradigm shift in cosmic architecture. Implementation requires ongoing guidance from perspective that comprehends both separation necessity and integration possibility. Its immense attention focused directly on Shenku. Cosmic significance evident in its communication. The fusion anomaly embodying both draconic wisdom and mortal adaptability represents ideal implementation authority. Will you accept this responsibility? The question carried weight beyond conventional decision, cosmic appointment rather than mere temporary assignment. Shenku remained silent momentarily, his dual consciousness processing implications from both draconic and Saiyan perspectives. The responsibility honors me, he finally responded, his dual-toned voice resonating with appropriate solemnity. Though, implementation requires not solitary authority but collaborative counsel representing diverse dimensional perspectives. Wisdom beyond expectation, the eternal dragon acknowledged with apparent satisfaction. Collaborative governance through diverse perspective alignment. The Sovereign Council shall be established accordingly. As these words reverberated through dimensional space, reality shift. Subtly around them, not crisis distortion but controlled reconfiguration. The central stabilization chamber transformed, its architecture evolving to accommodate new purpose beyond mere mechanical maintenance. Where utilitarian function had previously dominated, integrated purpose now manifested, governance center rather than simple maintenance facility. The Sovereign Council requires representatives from all affected dimensional domains, the Eternal Dragon continued, its consciousness already implementing necessary modifications throughout connected realities. Those present represent initial membership through demonstrated capability and diverse perspective. This announcement created visible surprise among all assembled, particularly Bulma, whose scientific detachment momentarily faltered at implication of cosmic appointment. Us, she questioned with uncharacteristic uncertainty. As interdimensional governance representatives, crisis reveals true nature more effectively than theoretical assessment. The Eternal Dragon explained, your collective response demonstrated integrated capability beyond conventional limitation. Implementation still requires formal acceptance from relevant authorities. Vados noted pragmatically, angelic governance, destroyer hierarchy, supreme Kai administration, all maintain sovereign authority within established cosmic architecture. Invitation rather than imposition. The Eternal Dragon clarified, evolution through collaborative choice rather than hierarchical mandate. The implications expanded through all present, cosmic restructuring proposed not through revolution but evolution. Transformation through responsible integration rather than chaotic dissolution or rigid preservation. The third path manifesting not merely in theoretical possibility but practical implementation. So what happens now? Caulifla asked with characteristic directness, cutting through cosmic implications to practical next steps. Return to respective dimensional domains, the Eternal Dragon instructed. Experience initial transformation effects. Observe integration manifestation within familiar contexts. The Sovereign Council will reconvene when preliminary adjustment phase completes. The massive consciousness began withdrawing, its presence too vast for prolonged manifestation within limited dimensional space. Before completely departing, however, final communication reached them with peculiar emphasis. The fusion anomaly demonstrates viable integration beyond theoretical limitation. Neither dragon nor Saiyan but transcendent harmony preserving both essences. Example for cosmic architecture evolution beyond artificial constraint. With those profound words, the Eternal Dragon's presence dissipated completely, not absence but expansion beyond local dimensional parameters. The central chamber remained transformed, its new configuration awaiting future council gatherings while current implementation proceeded through individual representatives returning to their respective domains. Well, Bulma remarked into momentary silence following Cosmic Entity's departure, that was certainly more impressive than standard project completion meeting. The unexpected humor broke tension that had built throughout monumental proceedings. Even Vegeta permitted slight smirk at characteristically pragmatic response to literally reality-altering events. The dimensional pathways should stabilize sufficiently for conventional transit within approximately one temporal unit, Tiamat informed them, her previous opposition completely transformed through philosophical recalibration. The stabilization matrix changes are propagating outward in controlled sequence rather than chaotic cascade. Sufficient time for preliminary implementation planning, Vados suggested, her staff glowing as she accessed information networks extending beyond Dragon Realm. The Grand Priest will require detailed briefing regarding paradigm shift implications. And I need comprehensive data collection regarding transformation parameters, Bulma added, already activating recording equipment to document unprecedented dimensional evolution process. The scientific implications alone will require decades of analysis. As practical considerations replaced immediate crisis response, Shenku found moment for personal reflection amid ongoing activity. His dual consciousness experienced unique harmony, dragon wisdom and Saiyan spirit perfectly integrated through shared purpose beyond either individual aspect's capability. He became aware of quiet presence beside him, Zangya, whose calculating observation had shifted to something more complex through shared experience. You've created something unprecedented, she observed quietly. Not merely crisis resolution but fundamental cosmic evolution. Not creation but catalysis, Shenku corrected gently. The potential always existed within current architecture, the possibility for integration without dissolution, connection without structural compromise. You embody that potential, she noted with surprising perception. Neither fully dragon nor merely Saiyan but harmonious integration preserving both while transcendent. Artificial limitations of either category. Her observation touched something fundamental within his dual consciousness, articulating what he had experienced but not fully expressed. This former Spock, pirate whose calculating pragmatism had initially aligned with Mizuma's destructive agenda now demonstrated philosophical understanding matching any cosmic entity's perspective. Before he could respond appropriately, Caulifla inserted herself into conversation with characteristic directness. So Dragon Man becomes cosmic administrator. Pretty significant career change from punching bad guys. Demonstration through example rather than merely authority, Shenku clarified, appreciating her grounding influence amid potentially overwhelming cosmic implications. The integration this form represents provides implementation template rather than simply governance position. Still means responsibilities beyond conventional combat challenges, she pressed, studying him with surprisingly perceptive assessment. The Saiyan part of you okay with that? The question demonstrated understanding beyond her typically combat-focused exterior, recognition of potential internal conflict between Dragon's cosmic perspective and Saiyan's warrior spirit. Shenku considered momentarily before responding with complete honesty. The Saiyan aspect finds challenge in evolution beyond conventional limitation. Growth through transcending established boundaries rather than merely operating within them. His expression softened slightly, though occasional traditional combat remains essential for balanced development. That, Caulifla declared with evident satisfaction, sounds like genuine integration rather than simple combination. Maybe you really have figured out this third path business. Their conversation attracted Bulma's attention. Her scientific focus momentarily redirected to personal implications. The transformation affects you directly, she observed, approaching with monitoring equipment still actively recording. Your fusion stability has increased approximately 27% since matrix reprogramming implementation. The cosmic architecture now recognizes integrated existence as viable rather than aberration. Shenku confirmed, internal awareness confirming her external measurements. The mathematics supporting reality itself have evolved to accommodate previously prohibited dimensional combinations. Including dragon-mortal fusion, she concluded with scientific satisfaction that couldn't quite mask personal interest beneath professional exterior. Suggesting long-term sustainability rather than temporary anomaly status. The implications expanded beyond merely scientific observation, personal connection evident beneath analytical assessment. The growing bond between them had evolved throughout their interdimensional journey, from clinical researcher-subject dynamic to something considerably more complex. Vados joined their gathering, her angelic detachment softened Thr. Ao shared experience beyond conventional hierarchical interaction. The Grand Priest confirms initial transformation acceptance within celestial governance structures. The paradigm shift represents intriguing potential for cosmic architecture evolution, according to preliminary assessment. High praise from angelic bureaucracy, Vegeta commented dryly, though without his usual caustic edge. The proud Saiyan prince had evolved through their shared journey, rigid perspective softened without sacrificing essential strength. The dimensional pathways have stabilized sufficiently for return transit, Tiamat announced. Approaching their group with formal respect replacing previous opposition. Though the transformation continues propagating throughout connected realities, safe passage to origin domains is now viable. Then perhaps we should return home, Bulma suggested, though complex emotions colored her tone, scientific curiosity, personal connection, and genuine uncertainty about resuming normal existence after literally reality-altering experiences. Home, Shenku repeated thoughtfully, the concept resonating differently through his dual consciousness than before. Dragon S. Ents connected to cosmic architecture beyond specific location, Saiyan spirit maintained profound bond with Earth despite transcendent responsibilities. Together, they created unique perspective that honored both while limiting neither. Yes, he decided with quiet certainty. Home first. Understanding transformation implications within familiar context before expanding implementation through formal council proceedings. Vados nodded with approval, her staff already creating preliminary portal architecture. Wise approach. Experience before theory. Application before formalization. As preparations for return journey commenced, Shenku found moment for individual acknowledgement with each companion who had shared this unprecedented journey. With Vegeta, silent respect communicated more effectively than words, fellow warrior recognizing growth beyond previous limitations without diminishing essential nature. With Zangya and Kogu, formal recognition of their contribution despite complicated beginnings, redemption through choice rather than circumstance, evolution beyond previous limitations through conscious decision rather than external imposition. With Tiamat and the Paradox Dragons, philosophical reconciliation acknowledging valid perspective without accepting destructive implementation, the third path demonstrated through practical example rather than merely theoretical discussion. With Caulifla, warriors' promise of future challenges balanced with newfound respect transcending mere combat capability, connection formed through shared growth beyond conventional limitations. With Bulma, something more complex, intellectual partnership evolved beyond professional collaboration, personal connection deepened through shared discovery, mutual recognition of complementary capability. Creating possibilities beyond individual potential. With Vados, subtle acknowledgement of cosmic implications extending beyond immediate resolution, angelic perspective recognizing unprecedented evolution within established order. Potential for responsible transcendence rather than chaotic revolution. As the return portal stabilized, displaying familiar Earth landscape beyond its shimmering boundary. Shenku experienced profound certainty beyond either dragon wisdom or Saiyan instinct. The journey had transformed not merely cosmic architecture but personal connections, not only dimensional mathematics but interpersonal relationships. The third path extended beyond mere reality manipulation into life itself. Integration without dissolution, connection without compromise, evolution beyond art. Official limitation while preserving essential structure. As they prepared to step through dimensional boundary, each carrying unprecedented experience back to familiar context, the future expanded with possibilities beyond previous comprehension. Not ending but beginning. Not conclusion but evolution. The sovereign of time and space returning home to implement cosmic transformation through persona. Example rather than merely abstract authority. Ready? He asked his companions. This diverse coalition united through shared purpose despite different origins and perspectives. Their collective affirmation required no words. Unified purpose expressed through diverse methods, the fundamental principle that had saved reality itself from either rigid preservation or chaotic dissolution. Together the Y stepped through dimensional boundary toward transformed future, reality itself evolving around them not through revolution but responsible integration. The third path extending infinitely before them. Possibilities limited only by imagination rather than artificial constraint. 3 months after their return to Earth, Capsule Corporation's Central Garden hosted unprecedented gathering. Beneath evening sky displaying subtle evidence of cosmic transformation, occasional shimmer where dimensional boundaries had grown permeable rather than rigid, representatives from across realities celebrated not merely crisis resolution but fundamental evolution. Sun Shenku stood slightly apart from main celebration, observing with unique dual perspective. His appearance had stabilized into perfect integrity. Primarily humanoid form maintaining subtle draconic features that shifted slightly depending on emotional state or power utilization. Emerald scales along forearms caught moonlight with mathematical precision. Golden eyes with vertical pupils observed with both ancient wisdom and present engagement. Quite the gathering, Bulma observed, joining him with 2 champagne glasses. Saiyans, angels, dragon representatives, and several beings whose species classification remains scientifically undetermined. She had evolved as well during these transformation months, her scientific brilliance now applied to cosmic architecture analysis. Regular interdimensional council participation providing unprecedented research opportunities while developing personal connections beyond professional interest. Integration manifesting through celebration rather than merely governance, Shenku noted with appreciation, accepting offered beverage with slight smile. Practical implementation beyond theoretical framework. Always the philosopher, she teased gently, though genuine affection colored her tone. Their relationship had developed complex dimensions since return, intellectual partnership, personal connection, and something deeper that transcended conventional definition while honoring essential compatibility. Across the gathering, Vegeta engaged surprisingly civil conversation with Universe 6 representatives. Caulifla's animated combat demonstrations drawing grudging approval from the typically critical prince. The female Saiyan visited Earth regularly, ostensibly for transformation implementation consultation, but primarily for combat training with increasingly complex dimensional applications. Her approach to developing connection with Shenku remained characteristically direct, challenge, competition, and surprising moments of perceptive understanding beneath combat-focused exterior. Where Bulma connected through intellectual harmony, Caulifla offered physical counterbalance, ends. Erring Saiyan aspects remained engaged alongside draconic cosmic responsibilities. Nearby, Vados conversed with Chi-Chi and Gohan, unlikely grouping representing complex reconciliation between Shenku's previous existence connections and current evolved reality. The angel's presence on Earth had become increasingly regular, her official duties now including transformation implementation monitoring. That somehow frequently coincided with personal research projects alongside Bulma and direct philosophical discussions with Shenku. Her angelic detachment had softened through regular mortal interaction, cosmic perspective enriched by personal connection without compromising fundamental nature. Where Bulma offered intellectual stimulation and Caulifla physical challenge, Vados provided cosmic perspective and philosophical depth. Complementary connection honoring draconic aspects while transcending mere administrative interaction. In quieter corner of the gathering, Zhenya engaged serious conversation with Piccolo, former space pirate finding unexpected compatibility with Earth's strategic defender. Her integration into allied forces had progressed from reluctant cooperation to genuine commitment. Her calculating nature now applied to transformation implementation security rather than exploitative opportunity. Her connection with Shenku developed more gradually than others, professional respect evolving into personal understanding, shared experience creating foundation for complex relationship beyond conventional definition. Where others connected through specific aspects of his nature, Zhengya somehow engaged complete integration, appreciating both draconic wisdom and Saiyan strength while recognizing unique harmony transcending either individual component. The garden's ambient lighting subtly shifted as final expected guest arrived, space-time rippling briefly before Chronoa materialized with characteristic temporal precision. The Supreme Kai of Time had abandoned formal administrative detachment during transformation implementation, her ancient wisdom finding unexpected application beyond mere record-keeping. The Sovereign Council's temporal representative arrives precisely on schedule. Shenku greeted her with warm respect. Dimensional stability coefficients must be improving. Or perhaps I simply enjoy dramatic entrance timing, she countered with youthful grin belying ancient consciousness. Some cosmic habits transcend practical necessity. Her relationship with Shenku represented perhaps most complex connection, shared responsibility for fundamental reality parameters creating unique understanding beyond conventional interaction. Where others connected through specific aspects or complementary capabilities, Chronoa engaged from perspective of cosmic equal. Ancient wisdom recognizing transcendent potential while maintaining grounding through unexpected humor and practical implementation focus. As celebration continued around them, Shenku found moment our quiet appreciation. Not merely crisis resolution but ongoing transformation, not simple return to previous existence but evolution beyond artificial limitation. The dimensional changes continued propagating throughout connected realities. Boundaries becoming appropriately permeable rather than rigidly separated or chaotically dissolved. The Council meets tomorrow regarding Universe 11 implementation protocols. Chronoa reminded him while accepting beverage from attentive server. Temporal variance between dimensional domains creates interesting administrative challenges. Evolution through practical application rather than merely theoretical framework, Shenku acknowledged, comfortable with ongoing responsibilities beyond crisis resolution. The third path manifests differently through connected realities, appropriate adaptation rather than uniform imposition. Which reminds me, Bulma interjected, professional interest momentarily overriding social context, the quantum fluctuate. Ion patterns in dimensional boundary regions show fascinating harmonic variation depending on observer perspective. I have preliminary data suggesting consciousness itself influences permeability parameters within established transformation framework. Integration beyond merely physical architecture, Shenku noted with genuine interest, his dual consciousness appreciating both scientific precision and philosophical implications. Consciousness participating in reality definition rather than merely experiencing established parameters. Their discussion attracted Vados, whose angelic perception detected conversation transcending mere social exchange. The Grand Priest has noted similar observations throughout celestial domains. The transformation appears to respond to interaction rather than merely establishing static new architecture. Dimensional democracy, Khalifla commented, joining. Something went wrong with this response, please try again. Right next arc. Blank, _ blank. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.